Chapter 61. 61. Sanity. Nyan calmly looked at Joker and his straining smile. His face stoic under the mask with his visor going full black and his hands in his pocket. The man with the highest authority on the planet was standing still as he gazed at one chaotic mind. Batman and Gordon couldn't move to stop him. They understood they couldn't stop him. The time seemed to be at a standstill as Nyan entered Joker's mind. With his touch on the mind, he churned the chaotic landscape of insanity. Nyan could immediately tell that this mind was not right, at least compared to his. This mind was broken, shattered even. The mind was like a broken glass, one that was smashed by a hammer. The pieces were everywhere, some pieces even shattered beyond recognition, some forever lost into the oblivion. Nyan waved his hand, controlling all that chaos to something interactable. The chose churned and condensed into a room with multiple bookshelves, about 30, each a 12 division. But most were in disarray, with books sprawled on the ground, ripped pages scattered about. Some shelves even toppled and shattered. But some were intact, had books that were neatly arranged. Nyan lifted a book near his foot. This one had a golden cover with plashes of red and blue paint. Nyan could already tell that this book was missing few pages, even whole chapters. He opened the colorful book, and could see the memories within. He saw a woman, an intellectual, a bit insane even. Her character, her eyes, her lips. He could tell who it was. He could tell what Joker was feeling. This was Harley Quinn's first interaction with Joker and he was amused. Nyan kept flipping the page, going through many memories, each different from other, their interaction in Arkham. How their twisted love bloomed. Nyan flipped through until he found when Harleen turned to Harley. Nyan looked as Joker dropped her into the chemical vat, one similar to one that turned him. But what Joker expected was someone similar to him, someone criminally insane. However, Harley was different. She was not fully gone. She didn't have the desire to kill what she loved. He failed at creating another him. Nyan closed the book as the rest were just lost days with many pages missing, or things that he cared not to remember. Nyan waved his hand, scanning through the many scattered pages and found ones that belonged to the book. The pages flew into the book and merged themselves, completing the book. Nyan reached and placed the fixed book back to the shelf and turned to one of the shelves that was intact. He reached for one with black hard cover. He could already tell whose memory this was about. He opened the book and saw Batman punching. This was one of the many punches he received. Nyan flipped through and saw many atrocities he had committed to attract Batman, ones that were so clear and defined compared to Harley. He flipped through the pages and couldn't help but want to not restrain his mind. His mind so vast and powerful, comparable to an ocean, letting it unrestrained would leave Joker vegetable. However, he controlled himself from burning the mind and he placed the book back. He then scanned the books and lifted them all with telekinesis before he restored the torn pages. The many pages flew back to their own book. Torn pages mended together and attached themselves. The books were repaired one by one, some completely, some not. The shelves and years of his life before were put back together as they were the more damaged ones. The torn pieces were put back together. Broken psyche completed. Nyan wasn't even caring for the mental immune system trying to fight him. But a powerful mind like his could not be even graced by a human mind. However, Nyan couldn't fully say that Joker would be sane. The mind was too damaged for that. He couldn't heal the broken mind. It needed time to fix itself. Nyan pulled himself out, now out looking at Joker who no longer had a crazed smile but a weird tranquility. He doesn't seem to be responsive. If not for Nyan still keeping his force, he would have fallen. Nyan released his grip, letting the man fall to the floor. He then turned to the worried-looking Dr. Young. His mind is in order, but it's still fragile. I locked most of his memories as they would cause his mind to collapse again. I hope that you will be able to rehabilitate him before his execution. Execution? Gordon intervened before Dr. Young could. Nyan turned slowly, stating undeniable facts. Yes, execution. I will be implementing new laws that are more strict with harder punishments. So, execution is in order for most criminals, insane or not. Gordon didn't know what to say. How could he? How could anyone? He knew all that Joker did. How many times this maniac killed? How many times he had made people suffer for his amusements? How many families had he orphaned? Gordon couldn't for the right of him even argue. Moreover, he wanted the guy gone. What? Sorry, I got no sassy morality and redemption. And you have given him more than enough chances, Nyan stated as he turned to Batman with a smirk. I hope you won't disobey the law. After all, you fight for justice, so does the government. Batman just had his usual glare. I know that you have no killing code, Batman. However, I can't take on that code. I have a planet to manage and killing pest is the only option, Nyan stated and turned to Dr. Young. On that note, I have also fixed most if not all your patients. However, they all would need rehabilitation. Sorry for making your schedule busy. Nyan was not only browsing though the mind of Joker, but of all the patients in the asylum. The human mind was such a simple and complicated thing. Fixing it was easy but hard at the same time. So, time would reveal the results. It took time for Dr. Young to understand Nyan's statement. When she finally did, No, I should thank you. If they return back to their family normal, that's all I wanted, Dr. Young replied, a small smile and relief in her eyes. You are welcome, Nyan stated. Well, can you explain what your thought on human mind from your experience? Dr. Young inquired. She wanted to learn more and understand more. Nyan answered many other questions she had about human mind. They both conversed about how the treatment to these patients could be implemented as they walked back to Freeze's cell. Nyan saw that Freeze was already ready in his cryosuit. He pointed to the side and a door opened. Go through this, it will take you to your hideout, Nyan stated. People will come to assist you with your wife's retrieval. How do you know of my hideout? It's not even known to my closest associates, Mr. Freeze remarked. Dude, I know where Ivy's underwear is. Don't question me of things, Nyan stated. His words of answer causing Freeze to lift a brow. But Freeze decided to not question and walked through the door and it closed behind him. Nyan then turned to Dr. Young. Then I will take my leave, I don't want to bother you anymore. Allow me walk you out please, Dr. Young stated. Nyan stopped her. No need, Dr. Young. Take rest for the day, you will need it. Nyan then turned to Batman. Let's go. Nyan flicked his hand and a door appeared next to him. Nyan moved to cross but stopped before the door and turned to Gordon. Gordon, do not waste police force on trying to capture criminals. I have given them an option and I really hope they don't take it. Nyan didn't wait for Gordon to answer and walked through the door, leaving him silent. Batman turned to Gordon and gave his a nod of content before walking through the door. Batman crossed the door and felt his ears again pop due to the pressure difference. They were now in a dark place, one that was familiar to Batman. Batman scanned the dark cave and found Zion sitting on his scheming table with a juice in his hand. Would you like some refreshments, sir? Alfred asked with an empty tray. No need, Alfred, Batman replied. I understand, sir. Alfred turned to Nyan. Would you like anything else, sir? No need, Alfred, Nyan replied as he chucked the rest of the juice. I need to go home and get some sleep. Alfred received the glass and gave a comment. At least one of you have a regular sleeping cycle. I know, Nyan commented as a door opened next to him. Good night, Alfred. Maybe I will allow you to execute Joker. I would very much appreciate it, sir, Alfred commented as Nyan walked through the door. Alfred then walked up nonchalantly as they both didn't just casually talk about allowing the butler to kill his one hated person. Batman just looked at the Alfred's vanishing shadow. He then turned and sat on his back computer. He didn't want to start a conversation on that. He then surfed through and opened a video and audio live. He had left his devices in Iceberg Lounge when the others were dying. What is the plan? A voice very familiar to him. What? You want to fight him? Another voice rebuked. We can with enough power, another answered. So what's the plan? The first voice asked. We lay low for now and bid our time, the voice answered. You want us to surrender? Yes, but we can just walk out of the jail. Just kept the streets clean for now, the other voice said. Batman listened in on their conversation. The big bads were not here. These were the low-level thugs. The big bads were having their own little meeting on how to deal with the new situation. But Batman was sure that they will try to find the best way to avoid punishment, by claiming insane. Mean, he. Batman looked at the message. A smile tried to creep to his smile. Batman was justice in the corrupt system. But if the system would rise to smite injustice, he could only follow. He still held his no-killing rule, but he always let the system decide the punishment. He was not above system. So, this was not against his code. How did the conversation go? A voice asked as Robin appeared out of nowhere. The boy Wonder was wearing the suit Zion had given. He had grown to like the feeling of ease, especially that ability to cloak. Batman didn't turn but spoke. You are getting dependent on the suit. When the suit fails, you will be defenseless. I only use it to scare the crooks. The unseen works better, Robin replied as he removed his mask. Batman turned to Robin. It is better to hone your skill. Robin wanted to speak but he swallowed his words. Okay. No need to remove the suit. You can just turn it off. At least it will give him a way out in tough situation. Batman didn't need to turn. He could tell Zai was always listening. He was the greatest detective. Others might not fully realize but he did. Zai was already monitoring all of Gotham, included in his globe consciousness. Fine, I will allow it, Batman relented. Robin smiled. But what about the conversation? Batman turned back to the computer. Nyan gave a chance for the criminals to surrender. If not, Robin asked, yet he didn't need an answer. Everyone on Earth knew that answer. Batman stayed silent for a moment before stating, Joker will be executed, so will other criminals of his caliber. Really? Robin sounded even a bit happy, but he quickly realized, but they will not get their chance to change. We do not fight the system, Robin, Batman stated. We fight to protect the people. If criminals' death won't change a person, I don't see the path to redemption. And I am sure Sir Zion knows what he is doing. He already gave Victor and Ivy a way out. Wait, what did he give Freeze and Ivy? Robin asked. He was out of loop here. Victor was offered a cure and job, while she received a similar offer. I do not know about Ivy's situation, Batman answered. You don't? It's very rare for you to not know, Robin stated. Batman went silent. His face hardened. Yes, it was very rare for him to not know anything or get involved. So, from when was he okay with not knowing? From when he was okay with just knowing the context and not dig deeper? Batman frowned at that realization. Since when? Who knows? XX, Chapter 62. 62, Law and Order. The next morning, Nyan appeared in all televisions at the early hour of 10 o'clock. He awoke many people from their slumber and disrupted most of the people's work as all had to stop to watch. How could they not? The King of Earth had caused too much chaos every time he appeared. First time he appeared, he took over the whole planet. Second, he established himself as the King of the Earth. Third, he torched 100 live on television. Every single time it was always something major. Nyan appeared sitting on his crystal throne, fitting for the king. He was wearing his usual suit and helmet that kept his identity concealed. The man sat leisurely as he was here to ask people how their day was, but there was a hidden authority within his stature. Who dares to question a king if he wants to lay flat on his throne? Hello, people of Earth, Nyan stated. As I have stated on my last telecast, I have taken it upon myself to clean the city of Gotham. Nyan shifted and took a more serious pose. I have gone through the details of the city and have decided to take control. I have said that I will not be implementing or changing any law anytime soon, but your systemic infrastructure is pathetic. So, I will be implementing my law. It will start with the city of Gotham before moving to other cities across US before moving to other countries. Do not worry, I am only trying to make it so the civilians could live freely within their rights. And, from today onward, Gotham will be under my direct vision. These are the changes that will be implemented immediately and will only apply to Gotham for the period. Let's start with small things. First, laws. All laws will be revised to make it gender neutral. No gender will be exempted from protection and punishment. All will be treated equally. These laws will also branch into the section of marriage and such, but we will come to it a bit later. Second, harsher punishments for the crimes. Criminals with extensive record of crime will be given death penalty. No questions asked. Even if plead insane, you have had the chance, but no more terrorizing the people. The sentences for crimes such as terrorism, murder, rape, abuse, and such will be increased. And people under the attempted crime will be given punishment as for the crime committed. The punishment for the attempted murder will not be less than for murder. You just failed. That doesn't mean you are not guilty. Third, weapons permit. Under the law, all citizens are allowed to carry concealed firearm and given authority to defend yourselves from criminals. You are also allowed to carry pocket knife no longer than 4 inches and it should be sheathed. You have the right to defend yourselves. Use it well. Fourth, health. All health services will be free from today onward. This rule includes the private hospitals. The separate clinics may charge their patients, but if it's not within regular and affordable price, your license will be revoked. If you only deliver your services to the rich, your license will be revoked. Treat all life equally. I will be paying your salary. Fifth, education. Education from kindergarten to high school will be free. All that have owed department under education will be relived of such department. We educate to create a better society, not chain it down. The curriculum for the education will be under my supervision, and no gender studies will ever be conducted in school. The teenagers can't even figure what they are going to eat tomorrow. If any protest were to happen regarding this law, or any attempt of going behind me, I will put you all in jail for eternity. I mean it. Sixth, elections. No candidate will henceforth allowed to accept donations or any other fund or services from any type of organization. The candidates will be given a specific amount by the government, and you will only be allowed to use in your campaign. If you think that this is not fair or that you can't, you are clearly not suited for the job. And all candidates will be chosen by my algorithm. No more mouth-chewing politicians. Only those that are capable will be elected. This means the candidates will be independent and will have no inclination to favor any organization and will do their job justly. Seventh, legal age of adulthood. Male and female above 18 will be considered adults, but that doesn't mean you kick them out. You help them with getting a job and gain a financial independence before letting them go. I don't want an increase of homeless teenagers in my empire. Take care of your children. It is your responsibility to make them an adult, not society. What are we, your child care? Eighth, abortion. Abortion will only be conducted in a consent of both parents involved. No woman shall abort the baby on her own, and in situation that father wants to have the baby, the woman shall agree. The father then will take care of the woman until she gives birth, and she shall cut all ties with both of them. In case the woman wants to have the baby, but is in need of help, you can go to one of the hospitals and they will assist you with everything. Yeah, and if both parents agree and the baby is aborted, both parents will be arrested and charged of murder. Sorry, got to keep the laws. If you don't want to be in this kind of situation, keep it shut. Ninth, shelters. There will be multiple shelters that will be opened across Gotham. It will also be directly monitored by me. Those who need help and think that the authorities can't handle it, you can go there. You will be given protection and housing until the situation is resolved. 10. Tax. Tax laws will be revised and reduced to keep the economy safe and lessen the burden on civilians. Those that have been exempt form-specific tax laws will be met and charged for their crimes. Mostly. The central currency will be changed to credits. These changes will be immediate and their value will be managed by me alone. So, don't worry about inflation. Those will accounts or balance you can still use the currency in your pockets. You can exchange them for credits in your nearest banks. Do not worry, this change will be gradual. Do not rush to the banks and crowd it. 11th. Divorce. Can't believe that I would have to talk about this. Sorry, how hard is for you idiots to keep a marriage? The statistic is laughable for a species. Again, the laws will be gender neutral and fair to all. First of it all is the criminal charge for paternity fraud. You will be charged for at least 1 year of prison sentence and you will be asked to do public service for the next. I never thought I will be creating a law like this. God, what have I come to? Second, in divorce. The spouses have not inclination to financially support the other. In case you have a child, the spouse is to only support the child. Child support will only for the child and not the spouse. You are responsible adult. You don't need to depend on others to take care of you. In case of cheating, the cheater will not be given the child, period. You had the time to get divorce. In case of abuse, the spouse is to pay for the therapy, but also will be jailed. This goes both ways, so be careful. This law shall be applied to all, to those before this law and after. 12. Nyan got up from his seat and the camera followed him. Nyan then stood before a giant humanoid robot that dwarfed him. The 10-foot-tall giant looked menacing as it looked to the camera. This guy here is a Sentinel. They will be deployed to Gotham to assist the police. They will each pair with an officer forming a team, each complementing the other in their unique way. These guys are the top of my tech and have the power of an army. They will patrol the street of Gotham and keep it safe. If you ever need help, you can ask them. They are your friendly neighborhood Sentinels. Nyan then turned H camera and showed a whole army of them standing outside his window. Yeah, that's it I think. Nyan scratched. Oh wait, no animal cruelty. You will be charged with murder. Nyan closed the telecast with those words, leaving all that heard baffled. They were expecting many things, yet their brains took time to comprehend. The minute it finally did, some freaked as Nyan just announced his full takeover of the nations. He was no longer a singular force that had no grip on the world. While some were freaking out, the press from all around got ready to depart to Gotham for their take on the cover story. One of such was the Daily Planet. Perry got ready to send his best journalist, Clark and Lois. He quickly contacted them both and gave them the cover story. Nyan sat back on his throne as the background behind him changed. The army of Sentinels vanished, leaving about 500 standing. He didn't have an army of Sentinels. Each Sentinel was an advanced automaton. They were capable of many things. But this advanced tech took too much of his treasury to make. He also had other projects running. Each was for a different future. He was preparing for wars while he had peace. He couldn't be like the Justice League and fight the threat when it came knocking on his door. Yes, he was more than capable of dealing with such threats, but what at the point of having knowledge and not use it? Share my thanks to Hero, Nyan stated as he got up. He really did good work with this one. I already did, Zai replied. Should I send the Sentinels through? Not yet, I will meet with Gordon first, Nyan stated. What about the others? Nyan inquired. Victor is still adjusting to his new body. The kid is a bit shaken. Barter and Scott are settled down. She asked to meet with you. The Martians are still a bit skeptical, but they are adapting. Jem is being a good king and Johns is assisting him with the political pressure. But what are we to do with our prisoners? Nyan turned. We got prisoners? Yes, we do. Nyan didn't answer and quickly browsed the files to find the prisoner list. He saw the faces, especially Lex Luthor and Steve Trevor, and some of the grunts he found useful. They were captured at the start of the war and they were still locked in prison. What are we to do with them? I will deal with them. Nyan closed the screen and turned. You going down there? Yeah. Nyan arched a brow. Nothing. Lois called for a ride. She want to go to Gotham for cover. Oh. Nyan flicked and a door opened. I will go meet her. You take care of the prisoners. Nyan didn't wait and walked through. C=3. Zai sighed a breath of relief and wiped the virtual sweat. I can't let him meet Gelatina. She ticks all his boxes and that could go very wrong. Zai was grateful that Zion doesn't actively remember everything. The partial memory was the one that keeping him sane and safe. That is exactly the reason he was attracted to Kara. She was cold and hot at the same time, but Gelatina was hot and cold. He can't let his friend fall for a woman who only knows how to kill, and she was way older. Too much time waste on character growth. I don't see the path to a good story. Zai quickly reassigned the files. He needed to take care of the prisoner problem. He also contacted Barda to deal with the furries. Chapter 63. Cover. Lois looked at her watch, her foot tapping on the pavement. We could have gone with the reporting team, Lois. A male voice spoke to her. Perry insisted that we don't delay. Lois turned to the tall man wearing thick glasses, the combed hair and big shirt making him seem like a nerd. Clark, I understand Perry's insistence, but just trust my judgment. But we can't VR. Masterisk. An engine roar interrupted Clark. Both looked up to see a small car drifting through as it turned around the corner. The black Mini came straight for them, braked and drifted, parking itself before them. The smoke and the wind it was gathered pushed against Clark and Lois, messing their hair up. The window then rolled and a familiar face peeked out. Need a ride? Zion asked. You are late, Lois commented and walked to the passenger seat while Clark was forced to take the back. The big guy had to strain to get in a bit. The car was a bit small. I apologize, I was a bit busy. Zion pulled the car to out. Gotham for cover. Lois put her seatbelt and pulled her notepad. Yes, things are getting interesting in the city of brooding crime. Zion nodded and drove the car slowly through the packed road. Everyone was going everywhere. His small car was inconspicuous among the big one, especially the black and gold theme. The new takeover really attracting much attention, Zion commented. It is, Lois replied and turned to him. I assume you know many things. Me? What would I know? Zion smiled and looked at the rearview mirror. I am just a normal guy, aren't I, Clark? Ha! Clark flinched at the sudden question. A normal guy who wears one of the most powerful devices on the planet, Lois stated. You should know many things, Mr. Nyan. Zion turned to Lois. He showed no surprise that Lois found his identity but a small smile. How did you know? I thought you were bad with secret identities. Well, I don't know anyone else who wears the same watch as yours. Lois pointed to the Omnitrix. And it was easy to figure the identity when already you know the person. Zion looked to Clark. Really? Clark just returned a look that said, really? I didn't become one of the best due to luck. Lois replied. Zion just shook his head, a laughter escaping his lips. I think Clark would refute that claim. Don't you, Clark? Well, she does miss clues here and there, Clark answered, trying to shift the attention, gaining a glare from Lois. We will talk about that later, Clark. But Zion, Lois turned to Zion. You won't mind answering my questions in the place of Nyan. I don't mind answering a friend, Zion replied, stopping at red. So, you won't give me an exclusive? Lois asked. Can't, Zion answered. If I did, you would have a target on your head. I already have many with my exclusives with Superman, Lois commented. On that note, do you know where Lex is? He has not made any appearance since your appearance. Zion pressed the accelerator. He is imprisoned on Mars. Lois looked to Zion, her eyes sharp. Keep him there. You really hate the guy that much? Zion asked jokingly. He is an arrogant asshole, Lois stated. No cursing, Lois, Zion stated. But I understand you. Lois just shook her head. So, why did you decide to take over the world? Zion turned to her. Who is asking? Lois or Ms. Lane? Both, Lois answered. Zion turned right, looking at the civilians. Funny thing, I wasn't even planning to. Lois lifted a brow. What do you mean? Zion turned to Lois. It wasn't in my plan to conquer the world. It was mostly spur-of-the-moment decision. I was only preparing to fight the invasion that was coming. Invasion, the ones who came out the portal, Lois pointed. She vividly remembered the night of meteor shower and the earth-shaking battle. She was also the first to rush to the dock to get a coverage. Yes, Zion answered. I was preparing to fight them, and to fight a war, you need soldiers. I went to Mars to build my army, then one led to another, and now, I am the king of the earth. Domino, Lois commented. Zion smiled. Basically, why start with Gotham, not the whole world? Clark asked from the back. I don't have enough force to do so, Zion answered. I am alone on this. What of your soldiers? Lois asked. She had seen those giant humanoids blasting lasers. Zion shook his head. They are a very advanced life forms and they don't like violence, unless invoked. They like to just chill at home, and I am not going to make them do something they don't want to. You care for them more than humans, Clark pointed. I do, Zion agreed. He did care for them more. They are socially advanced than humans and they are more capable than human. They don't fight against each other or try to kill each other for a plot of land. A peaceful yet powerful race, Lois simplified. They are, Zion agreed. They only fought in war because I asked them to, and it was a needed help. Those parademons would have collapsed cities and raided human for their flesh. What happened to the guy you fought? Lois asked. He escaped. Zion tightened his grip on the steering wheel. I was so close to ending him. An annoying idiot saved him. Zion let out a loud breath, calming his annoyance. You didn't follow? Lois asked. Zion shook his head. Waste of time, and he will return anyway. I see no point in chasing him. He will return? Clark asked, a bit urged. Yes, Zion answered. He will come for Earth again, and again, until he is dead or he gets what he wants. Which is? Lois asked. Dominion over all life form in the universe, Zion answered. He is just annoying, let's move on. Clark just leaned back in thought, while Lois looked at her notepad and turned to Zion. Okay then, let me ask the questions I wanted to. Why harsher punishments? To invoke fear, harsher punishment means less would try to commit crime. Death sentence. For heinous crimes, sometime you got to compromise to keep your home safe. Weapons permit. Psychological deterrence. The possible retaliation will deter criminals from committing it. I love free healthcare, but what of medical drugs? Will they be free? Not for now. I plan of taking that from private companies in the future. No one should profit from people dying, Zion answered as he took the direct road out of Metropolis. Lois nodded. Why make education free? Don't you think that people will appreciate it less since it's free? Maybe, but I am not making it free for those that want to laze around, but for people who want to grow. Zion increased the speed slowly. Lois just smiled. She was expecting that. What about poverty then? People don't need free food. They need opportunity to feed themselves. Election. Controlled. People will vote for those that will guide them to better future. When people know what a good leader looks like, they will recognize the bad ones. Legal age. I don't like how you all just kick your children out of your house thinking society would make them grown-ups. Grow up. We already got too many idiots on the street. Abortion. I can't say I am on that one. What if the girl was raped? I understand that this will be both burdening for the child and the mother. So she can. However, what in the case of just hooking up? I can't allow people to just kill children because they wanted to enjoy themselves. They decided to have sex, so bear the responsibility. But don't you think that it will burden a woman to bear the children in case the father wants the child? Didn't they both agree to have sex? So why is it only women who have the right to decide it? Thought about that? It takes two to tango. I got no comments, but I do like that the single mothers will get support. Next, shelters and Sentinels. Sentinels will be my main force here on Earth. They will make sure that people are judged correctly and no innocent is punished. I am not going to make laws stricter without giving a way for a person to prove themselves. And, shelters will function the same as any other shelter, but it is also for people who want support but are afraid to ask. Police might need proof, but I don't. My Sentinels could find proof. There won't be any worry over lack of response. You deployed them yet? Zion shook his head. Not yet. I need to meet with Commissioner Gordon. The Sentinels are mostly support for the police. They won't take away their job. So, I need to be there when they assign the police officers. You got many plans, Lois stated. I do, always. Zion replied. What do the people think? Lois asked. Isn't that for you to find out? Zion smiled. I don't need to worry about people hating me. People hate change, but I hope you show the true side of my cause. Lois made a contemplating face. Which is, justice always prevails, Zion quoted. They crossed the welcome sign of Gotham, entering the Gothic monolith. The Lois might not have noticed due to how smooth the ride was, but Zion was breaking many speed limits. Where do I drop you? Zion asked. Anywhere in the suburb, Lois replied. We want to ask the citizens on their view of the matter. And again, I wanted to ask if you will give us protection. Come on, you got a big man in the back, Zion joked. Clark? I am sure he would faint at a bloody knife, Lois countered. Zion wiggled his eyebrows as he spoke. You might not know who the hero is. Your knight always accompanies in the shadow. Zion slowed down and parked the car. Thanks, Lois said. I will make sure that people understand. Well, appreciated. Zion replied. Lois got out of the car and quickly moved to fight her first victim, while Clark pushed himself out of the car. After fighting for a moment, he finally pulled himself out. Thanks for ride, Clark stated. Hey, Clark, Zion called and extended an envelope to Clark. Clark looked at the envelope, scanning it with his X-ray vision. He saw 2 crystal rings of different size and a folded invite with JL on it. What is this? Zion had a very disappointed face. Stop being a nerd and ask her out. Trust me, she will understand. As for the invite, think about it. Zion threw the envelope at Clark and drove away. Clark, Lois called, already talking to a woman. Coming, Clark answered and put the envelope in his bag before joking toward Lois. Zion looked at the rearview mirror and shook his head. He could only push. Clark need to take the step. Hey, we got guests. Zai's voice came from the radio. Who? Lanterns. They are late, Zion commented. I wish they were not here. Why? Zion chuckled. Hal brought people who are dumb as him. They are demanding to meet you immediately. Who are the one arrived? Zion asked. Kilowog, Sinistro, Boudica. They sent the heavy hitters, Zion muttered. Ask them to wait, I got better things to do. Chapter 64. 64. Work. Hal Jordan traveled to different sectors, gathering his trusted allies, those who would hit hard. He had experienced the power of the one he was to apprehend. Hal was cocky but not overly so. Even though he thought he could take care of the Inferno himself, under the Guardian's command, he tracked down other lanterns. He went to sectors 674, 1417, and 1414 to collect Kilowog, Sinestro, and Boudica. They were the greatest warriors he knew, who would never relent in a fight. But not all were ready for immediate departure as they still had things to do. For Kilowog, he was hunting a slave ship that was kidnapping people from primitive planets. Sinestro was returning a criminal to the prison he broke out of, and Boudica needed to finish her patrol. He helped Kilowog capture the traitors and deliver them to the prisons and made arrangements for the slaves to return home. They both went to Sinestro and Boudica since their sectors were near each other. With all gathered, he began his explanation of the mission. He showed the projection of Nyaz and the fight that was recorded in his ring. He also made sure to list all the powers he knew. Telekinesis, telepathy, shape-shifting, pyrokinesis, super strength, heat vision. Kilowog joked about how Hal was knocked out, but he also understood the danger of the target. The amount of force needed to break Green Lantern's armor was astronomical, as it was made to combat the chaotic environments of different planets. But that defense was easily broken with a strong enough attack. Moreover, the target knew of the innate weakness of their power rings. From the orders and analysis on the target, the Green Lanterns decided to go with a less lethal option. They would converse with Nyan and take him to the Guardians. They then decided on their roles and followed Hal to the Sol system to Mars. The once red planet was mostly black now with circuitry lines running through it. The small red spot on the black planet was like the iris of an eye, and the circuits looked like vessels. The black lands looked like a stretch of plains from above, but on the ground, it was filled with mountains and forests filled with tall trees. The forest was filled with mechmorphic flora and fauna, brimming with life at every corner. The weird animals with circular eyes stared at the foreign visitors with curiosity, not with fear. These mechmorphs were inherently not fearful, as death was not a concept in their world. The very earth that gave them life also gave them knowledge and immortality. This was what humans could call Eden. The lanterns scanned the planet, but their rings could not recognize anything, not even the matter of the earth. The ring just kept repeating, not identified, as it scanned the flora around them. The lanterns looked a bit skeptical of the surrounding as they flew toward a towering castle the size of a city. The Crystal City was a dot compared to the Black Land, but it stood tall in all its majesty. The high tower at the center graced the sky, cutting through the white clouds. The Gothic towers and high walls looked intimidating, guarding against anything that dared to attack. Gargoyles sat intimidatingly as they judged the empty city. The lanterns flew above the city and floated above the force field. "NIOZ," Hal called out. They waited in silence, waiting for a reply. For a moment, there was absolute silence as the lanterns wondered if they were heard. Yet when Hal was about to voice again, the city came alive as a voice boomed from the high tower. "He is not here." "Then who is talking?" Hal asked. "Your grandma," Zai answered. "Nyan, come out," Hal demanded. "He is not here," Zai repeated. "Then where is he?" Hal questioned. "None of your business, Green Lanterns," Zai answered. Hal groaned as he felt frustration rising. Sinestro placed a hand on Hal's shoulder before he moved forward. He then spoke with authority. "We are here under the order of the Guardians of the Universe. The Guardians demand your presence." Nyan is not here. Return after booking an appointment, Zai responded. Should we use force? Boudica said as she cracked her knuckles. No, Sinestro lifted his hand to stop her. Not yet. When can we meet? Kilowog asked. The schedule is a bit busy. Zai sounded like he was contemplating. So, how about never? Comply. Sinestro flashed his ring. You sure? Zai questioned. The city hummed to power as the force field flashed bright and the golden circuitry lines came alive near the city. It felt like a sleeping monolith was coming alive. The lanterns felt no threat at the show of power, but there was no need to. Tell your arrogant superiors that if they want to meet, they can come here to do so. Kilowog was the one to speak out. Guardians can't leave their post, from keeping order in the universe. Please rethink your statement at your leisure, Kilowog. Come later, I am a bit busy to keep you company, Zai stated, and the city lights died down, returning to its sleep. Zai didn't care for the Guardians attacking him or others on this planet. He knew who they would be dealing with if that were to happen, and he judged Green Lanterns to have a hint of a brain left in their skull. What do we do now? Kilowog asked. I will go to Earth, Hal said to Sinestro. Get Superman who knows him. Okay, Sinestro replied. Hal turned to Kilowog, and the two lanterns flew toward Earth while Sinestro and Boudica remained. Sinestro then lifted his hand and spoke. Connect to the Guardians. What is it, Lantern? One of the Guardians answered. Our target is not complying. He demands the Guardians to visit. Should we use aggression? Sinestro replied. Use force if necessary. The orders came through. Zion drove back to his warehouse, which was covered in light dust. He then transformed into Terraspin, a giant turtle capable of turning into a fan to blow the dust away from his equipment. After dusting the place, he changed into his spare suit. He didn't want to return to Mars and deal with the lanterns. They were such a pain, and he wanted to meet the Guardians anyway. He then opened the door to Gordon's office and walked through. Gordon, who was going through a case file, freaked out. He pushed back on his chair and pulled his gun. It was fortunate that Gordon was not trigger-happy. Zion waved, unfazed by a mere gun. Gordon lowered the gun and placed it on the table, feeling a headache rising. He was already stressed with all the things happening in the city. Since Nyan's takeover, things had become complicated. Low-end criminals were going into a frenzy due to panic, while high-end criminals went underground. He couldn't figure out what these maniacs were thinking. Gordon, ready to meet your new workforce? Nyan asked cheerfully. Gordon sighed. He didn't want to deal with it now. He just wanted to return home. Don't worry, your stress will be reduced with their arrival, Nyan continued to assure. The crimes will be solved efficiently and methodically. There will be no worry about corruption or backstabbing. You will be able to deal with city-level threats and respond better to situations. You should be happy about this. Gordon let out another sigh, resigning himself to deal with it. Thank you, sir. He didn't want some of his officers to irk the king and be reprimanded. He, as the commissioner, had to deal with it. Why don't we go and welcome them? Nyan asked as he opened the door. The office, which was chattering, went pin-drop silent when they saw him walk out. Those who hadn't noticed due to their work turned due to the abnormal silence. They took a moment to understand and stood up in a hurry. They were in the presence of a king, and Nyan's stature demanded respect. Some police officers even shivered when they saw him turn to them, especially those with guilty hearts. And Nyan was going through their files, evaluating who to fire and who to reappoint. He didn't want dirt in his system. Gotham would be clean when he was done with it. Nyan already had 100 names of those he would fire from the force by the time he crossed the first table. He then scanned the facilities. Gordon sheathed his gun and quickly followed Nyan. He waved the officers to return to work while he rushed to the king. He followed Nyan as he strolled through the station. He saw Nyan looking around curiously before he commented. You are going to need a bigger building, Nyan began. The conditions of your facilities are less than desirable. Your metahuman prisons can't hold the strongest or most intelligent of them. The equipment you have is incapable of restraining or stopping them. The whole building is outdated and vulnerable to a break-in. It also seems most of your budget has gone into some pockets. I will meet with the mayor and see if he is willing to step down. Gordon listened to all and gulped at the last. He knew that they were grossly undergeared for the criminals of the city. He had lost many of his trusted officers due to it, and he would really appreciate it if the situation improved. Gotham's force was really poor compared to the criminals who controlled the city. The police were always outgunned by the criminals. I will appoint someone better, Nyan stated. But there are also too many corrupt individuals that if I remove them all, it would create a vacuum. I don't have experienced people to fill the created vacuum. Well, I can always appoint a sentinel to do the job. Maybe the force doesn't need humans anymore? Should I make the whole upper echelon automatic? Nyan muttered to himself. He could basically go fully tyrannical and install a new automated government that would control the whole world. It would be more integrated, but it would also be tyrannical, yet it would be more efficient. Conundrums. Moreover, he didn't have the time to create a fully integrated system in weeks. It would also create a disparity with social advancement and morality. Too much good is bad too. He would appoint a new mayor to deal with it. He had a target in mind who would be more suited. Batman, the Knight, the Vengeance, the mayor. He wouldn't need to run around in spandex, and Alfred would have less stress. How could he not care for his favorite butler? He would at least do it for the shits and giggles. The grumpy bat as mayor is one of the hilarious sights. With Nyan lost in his world, Gordon followed him silently. They both arrived at the grounds where the teams gathered for mass briefing. Nyan found only this space suitable for bringing his sentinels. He gave a command, and a massive door opened at the end of the field. Gordon watched the warped gold cuboid as the space churned and metallic beings walked through. The humanoid giant was followed by 3 rows of sentinels, marching orderly. The sentinels were armored with sleek, metallic plating, adorned with glowing light and intricate mechanics. Their heads looked humane, segmented so they could mimic emotions. Their eyes glowed blue with intelligence, and their faces looked different from each other, distinguishing one from the other. They also had divided genders and different characteristics, designed so people could feel at ease when they saw a sentinel. Gordon looked amazed at the sentinels. They were bigger and intimidating, but also reassuring. Atomizer, Nyan called, and the sentinel at the front walked to them. His design made it clear that he was the leader of the others. He came before Zion and saluted. Sir, you will work with Commissioner Gordon and send others to their assigned officers. I want the city clean by the week. Use the lethal option if necessary. Nyan ordered. He had already programmed the sentinels, but it felt natural to give them orders. Atomizer turned to his subordinates and shared the files with them all. Disperse, my sentinels. The sentinels uniformly saluted and dispersed. They took to the skies and divided, moving towards their assigned districts. They would perform well, and if some idiot was dumb enough to kidnap them, he would kindly visit them in full force. But he didn't need to worry. Each sentinel was more capable than any metahuman on Earth. Atomizer then turned to the commissioner and extended his massive hand for a handshake. Gordon was flustered, but he shook Atomizer's hand. The scene was like a child shaking the hand of an adult. It's an honor working with you, sir, Atomizer voiced, his bionic voice carrying his sincerity. Likewise, Gordon replied to Atomizer. Atomizer will handle the assignment. Nyan looked at his clock. I have somewhere to be. I better get going. A door opened next to Nyan, and he walked in, leaving few words for Atomizer. Do well, Atomizer. Chapter 65. 65. Execution Kara floated above the churning ocean. The ever-chaotic sea filled with towering waves crashing against each other and mighty winds that made one feel the wrath of nature. The mightiest of Earth's nature, unexplored by mankind, hiding mysteries in its depth. Kara felt her sense overwhelmed by the sheer chaotic nature of such place. She was surrounded by ocean all side with wind fluttering her cape. She was here on a mission to capture some worthless criminals. She had been stationed in a country after removing all its terrorists. She was meant to remain as a show of force and authority. She felt no guilt watching all those burn. She felt relieved that they were all dead. While she remained, she saw the after effect of all that the terrorists did. They were really not worth calling humans, even by the kindest souls. She stayed until night, before returning to Smallville. She had already made sure that no trouble would lift its head before returning. She was tense until she came back home. She wanted to stay with Martha for the night, and moreover she had promised to return for dinner. Martha asked no questions and served her dinner with the same warm smile that she had become so used to. Martha had grown on her, her presence calming her. She understood why Kal-El grew up to be what he is. Kara cherished the warmth and the creaking bed gave her peace. She slowly forgot the feeling of alienation at home. She didn't feel like she was not fitting in places. Martha was one of the main reasons she could felt that way. She slept well. The area around her house was only filled with the sound of animals. The nature of the night. She had grown used to them too. No more sleepless nights and only peace. She thought of herself no more as a hero, no more as a beacon of hope, just a normal person. Kara understood not why, but she was adjusting. Finally, slowly let go of her past. But when she got up in the morning, Zion hit her up. He had given her a phone, highly advanced one. He had a mission for her. Nothing much, just cleaning trash. He gave her many targets for her to clean up. These targets were around the whole world, spread across the globe, sinking their poisonous claw deep into the system. Normally, such a large-scale mission need multiple countries' agreement and move of massive political power. However, who dares to question the king's decision? Zion didn't inform them. Kara ate her breakfast and left to her job. She was being paid for her duties. How can a king not pay his knight? Kara's account balance was in millions. She without knowing had become his sword. Maybe she did. Kara still wondered how easy it was for Zion to take over Earth. She wondered how Kal-El had not taken over Earth. However, she also understood that Kal-El would never do that. But she still thought that the superhero work was inefficient in solving the problems in society. Kara flew through the sky as she checked the first target. This one was near and was only a building. Crime, arms dealing, support of terrorism, rape and murder. Sentence. Death. Just collapse the building. Kara closed the phone and appeared above the building, high up in the sky that she was nothing but a dot. She scanned the building for her targets and the surrounding for potential escapees. After confirming that there will be not innocent casualties, she dropped. She stopped levitating and just dropped. The gravity pulled at her, her velocity increasing and increasing until she became a Kryptonian missile. After a minute, her feet touched the roof and it turned to dust on impact. Boom. Her body fell through uninterrupted by anything until she landed on the basement. Her landing caused the whole ground to sink as crater extended beyond the building. The building that was okay one moment began to crack the next. Cracks extended through the building as its foundation broke, causing the building to collapse on itself. The 4-story building sunk to the ground, throwing dust and rubble across the street. Boom. Kara jumped out of the rubble and scanned the area for any surviving target. She saw that some were crushed and others were stuck under rubble. She cared not to finish them off as she flew away. Kara didn't want to kill recklessly, but they were going to die anyway. And she cared not for garbage. Kara then selected the second target and flew there. The same stuff, different way. Kara dropped down and killed if she could or just blasted them with heat vision if she wanted precision. Cold breath and some punches to break bones. She moved from one target to another, taking them all out without much care. No force expected the attack, nor were they ready for one. Kara was like an unstoppable wind that blew through their straw huts. No weapon or man could stop her. Kara ticked off nearly all of her targets by afternoon, her next one leading her to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Crimes: human trafficking, wildlife trafficking, kidnapping and exploitation, murder. Sentence: to hell. Kill on sight. Kara read the description and scanned the massive cargo ship. The sight caused her brow to furrow in anger. The places she had hit before were small compared to this. Hundreds of containers were filled with humans, man, woman, children, all imprisoned like animals. Most looked as they were dead, their eyes hollow. The children looked malnourished and traumatized. They all cuddled together in so much fear that Kara's vision turned red in pure rage. She then scanned for all others, and it infuriated her more. The men who had imprisoned them were partying, getting drunk and forcing themselves on their to-be victims. They had men, women, children, bound and unbound, crying for mercy as these beasts tried to force themselves on them. On the other side was the past victims, chained naked to the wall for their sadistic pleasure. Their body were impaled in places it should not be. Kara couldn't imagine the horror they have experienced. Kara moved, not thinking once before she turned all the monsters into blood mist. She pulled no punched and turned everything wrong to nothing. She crushed their body, divided them with her heat vision, froze them in ice. No wall blocked her as she tore the monsters with her bare hand. Swish. It all happened in an instant. The victims were still begging when the wind blew them back. They lifted their heads and saw gore and blood as their capture were broken beyond recognition. They didn't know what happened, but a storm had killed their horror. Kara was on the other side of the ship, her dress untouched. She scanned the place, all were dead, yet her anger not. She was fuming. She didn't understand why humans would do this to their own kind. Ping. Kara pulled the phone from her belt. It showed a location a few kilometers from where she was, to an island. Take them there. Kara understood as she kept the phone back and dived into the ocean. She swam under the cargo ship and lifted it. Her muscles strained as she exerted a force beyond normal. Her breath steady, her hands sunk. She covered the whole ship in her tactical telekinesis, stopping the ship from breaking due its weight. The medium-sized cargo ship weighing in tens of thousands of tons was lifted from the ocean. Those that were in the ship freaked out as they rushed to the window and saw the ocean drain. No, they were floating up. They moved to figure what happened, but Kara began to fly in the island's direction. The massive ship flew horizontally towards the horizon. Kara didn't feel the strain much, just felt the ship was a bit heavy. As heavy as a kilo to a human. She carried the ship through the ragging wind and crashing waves, unperturbed. After flying for an hour, she arrived at the nearest habitable island. She lowered the ship back into the ocean, softly as she could, and pulled it to the shore. She pulled the ship fully into the shore and flew back up. She lifted the containers one by one and placed them on the ground, carefully. She unloaded all the containers from the ship, even tore the whole crew section and put it down. The kidnapped cuddled together as they felt the container moved. They felt fear that they have finally arrived at their hell, ready to be sold like sheep. The hopeful of them wished it was rescue. They prayed that they were being taken from this hell. They looked to the door with gazes containing many emotions. The door creaked and bent as it was ripped from its hinges before being thrown off. Light flooded the dark confinement, causing all to squint their eyes. The women blocked the light with their arms, squinting through the fingers to see who it was. All they saw was the bright red S and the fluttering cape, figure blackened by the flooding light. They knew what the S stood for. Superman. The woman at the front spoke, unable to see the figure's face due to the light. No, Kara replied as she turned away. Then, the woman asked, wanting to know who it was. Kara thought for a moment. She didn't have a hero moniker, but Martha did. Supergirl, call me Supergirl, Kara answered. Kara then moved away from the container and ripped the doors of the other. She tore them away as it was easier for her. It was similar to tearing wet tissue paper. The thumping sound of metal door hitting the ground reverberated through. Those that were still sealed felt hope, while those that were free gathered themselves and moved to release other. The women released the men and the men spread to release others. Kara tore open the door to the children, who cuddled to the back in fear. But they rushed forward when they say the S. Hope was ignited as their hero was here. They didn't notice Kara, but the S. They noticed Hope. Kara freaked a bit at the children running to her crying. She didn't know how to react, and the momentary lapse caused her to be surrounded by crying kids who hugged her tight. Kara looked around, struggling, not knowing how to calm them. She was in a conundrum until a group of women rushed to the children and separated them from Kara. They soothed the children in different language. The men didn't watch as they let the women soothe the children. They didn't want to scare the children anymore. The women spread and soothed the other children. Kara slipped away from the children and a ping came from her belt. Rescue will arrive in 30. Kara kept the phone back in and waited for 30 minutes. She didn't want to leave. Her presence assured the people. The people who had calmed down fell to the floor in gratitude. They cried their gratefulness to Kara, but Kara only felt more awkward. After 30 minutes, a battalion of navy and choppers arrived to the island. They moved immediately, seeing the mess. Broken cargo ship and hundreds of containers covering the whole beach. The military who moved were guarded as they moved to the people. They fear Kara and the man who commanded. They began checking the people and giving them juice to hydrate before they moved to check their conditions. Kara watched them for a few minutes to make sure everything was all right before she flew away. She still had many other people to kill. Chapter 66. 66. Burden Kara flew from the island and began wreaking havoc on all the other targets. Across the world, people died without knowing the cause. Those who were on the list were all criminals who committed heinous crimes worthy of death. So, Kara held no punches back as she tore through them like a paper shredder. Within the next hour, she hit more than 50 different targets across the globe. She didn't stop, just executed without mercy. Everywhere she went, there was destruction, blood, and gore. Yet, not a single drop of blood was on her. With such actions, she rescued more than 1,000 people, but also gave enough cause for the governments of the countries to move. They had been ignoring it or putting it as a low priority. But the fact that a separate individual could come into their country and wreck it without them being able to stop it was frightening. Kara worked until the sky turned light, and by mid-evening, she had put an end to these crime chains across the globe. This would not only halt the crimes across the globe, but also make the criminals scared. There was no more mercy. There were no more loopholes. Only death was present. Kara returned home, back to Kansas. However, she couldn't walk into her home. She just floated above the house, her figure bathing in the setting sun. She couldn't bring herself to go in. She felt her heart heavy. It was the guilt of a life she had taken today. She didn't feel regret about their deaths, nor did she care. But this phantom guilt stopped her from seeing Martha. She felt disgusting to even face her. It was like facing her father all over again. Even though they understood, it still felt wrong. "Aren't it a pain?" a voice stated, a voice very familiar. "Zion," Kara spoke without turning. Zion floated next to Kara in his Solaris transformation. He felt that this would be the most appropriate for the talk. He knew how Kara would feel. Her anger and conviction would let her kill but not her heart. She was impulsive but kind. "How was the day?" "Bit prickly," he asked, not turning to her face. "Why are you here, Zion?" Kara asked. She knew Zion was here for something. Zion floated a step forward, blocking the sun. He turned with the light to his backdrop. The cape on his suit fluttered in the wind. He looked straight at Kara. "Stop being dramatic and cut to the chase." Kara cut him off. "Come on, don't spoil the mood," Zion whined, moving away from the sun and stopped trying to be dramatic. "I am here to talk." Zion crossed his arms to the back and looked at the sunset. "What your heart is feeling is the burden of death, of the lives that were taken. It is the feeling of crossing the line of black and white and entering gray. You do not regret the decision to kill, but you feel accountable," Zion continued, not speaking only to Kara. "To kill is to live with that burden, even if that was the right thing to do. Taking a life puts a burden on your soul. That's what it means to have a conscience. It is right. The weight of death only weighs on those that want to live right. If you hadn't, you would be no different than those that you kill. Weight of death is not easily reconciled. Unattended, it will darken your soul. Zion was here to do therapy and he would. The burden can't be removed but can be lessened. You just need to accept that it was for the better cause. For the better future. It is to accept the burden and live with it. And remember, you have not just saved thousands but millions of others who would be victims. They will now return to their family and be happy. Their happiness comes due to your sacrifice. It will take time for you to accept the burden, but don't we all have a little bit of time?" Zion gave a bright smile, but Kara still didn't turn to him. She stood still, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She was contemplating his words. Today she had killed more than 1,000 people. She had ended that many lives. It was no longer about crossing the line. It was about accepting, to not sink into the abyss. She can't undo the deaths, but she can live with her decision. "I don't want to kill," Kara spoke. "I don't want to feel ashamed to look at one person who showed me kindness. But if it is needed, I will do it." Zion nodded. "I understand." Kara thought for a moment and asked, "No more work?" PFTT. Zion burst into laughter. He laughed so loud he started to gasp for breath. The irony in it was blind to Kara. Kara was one of the strongest Kryptonians on the planet. She had no weakness, but she was scared of working as a waiter. She had a really bad experience. She had joined the nearby restaurant to work as a waiter. Throughout the morning, she did great as it was easy for her to memorize the names and orders. She just didn't know how to suggest a good food when people asked, but that was not the problem. It was a cold Friday night. Her shift was late, and workers who had finished their shifts came to order. The restaurant was packed a bit, and the waiters moved about taking orders. Kara, being one of the best, moved around the tables to take orders. And some drunken idiot thought it was a good idea to try and grab her. Well, it ended with him in the hospital due to a skull fracture. She had hit the guy so hard that the tray she had his face print on it. The manager, a big black woman, didn't care about the guy, but she chewed Kara out for breaking the table and tray. Kara had heard some hard words in her time of imprisonment, but it didn't hurt much like the woman calling her a reckless idiot. The manager, the fearless woman, scolded her so bad that she missed her mother. Kara was weak to insults, especially ones that cared, and the woman didn't care if Kara had strength. She came back nearly crying, and Martha had to console her. Martha paid for the broken items, and the manager was still okay with Kara working. Zion, who heard of it, fell to the floor in laughter. "Sorry. Sorry," Zion apologized, but he couldn't control. "It's just a funny image." Kara glared at Zion, her itch to punch his face increasing. Zion then offered Kara a job. She was to be his knight. Of course, there were many conditions on Kara's part. She had the right to refuse the job or completely disobey Zion's orders. She could do anything she wanted, and Zion would pay for the job she did. And it was the money that made her change her mind. She was outright broke. She went to the restaurant so she could normalize her interaction with humans. She would then find a better job later after she was okay with other humans. But now she had more than millions and still worked at the restaurant, sometimes. Okay, Zion controlled his laughter. You can visit Mars. Zia, I will find something for you to do. Zion had many things to do, and Zia was already monitoring all of it. The poor AI was overworked and not paid, but he could lessen the burden with Kara's assistance. Her being near would also help him collect some data. Kara nodded at the suggestion. Why don't you kids come in instead of just floating like kites? Kara looked to Martha, who was standing on the porch. She had her hands folded with a warm smile. Yes, Martha, Kara replied as she got to the ground and gave Martha a hug. Ask your friend to come too. Martha looked at Zion, who was still floating. Yes, ma'am. Zion smiled as he landed down. Kara sidelong glared at Zion before she walked in and went to her room. Solaris' dress morphed and turned into a normal t-shirt and shorts. Sit on the couch. The dinner will be finished in a few minutes, Martha instructed before she walked into the kitchen. Zion sat down, only for a few moments before he stood up and walked around before the living room, looking at the pictures. He saw pictures of Clark at different ages, from a baby to a young man at his prom dress. Green Lantern arrived above the skies of Metropolis, Daily Planet. He had tracked Superman with his ring. He needed to find Niaz, and Superman seemed to know the guy. So, he came for Superman. He tracked down Superman to his working place and found the guy working in a nearly empty office. Talk about shock. He wanted to speak to him, but he also didn't want to reveal his secret identity. So, he wielded a microphone and shouted, Superman, I am here to talk. The sound was loud enough to be heard by people in the whole building. Those who heard looked out the window at the two who were floating around in green and especially at the massive humanoid pink boar that looked menacing. Flashes and photos were taken by the reporters in the building. Lantern, why are you here? Superman appeared at the scene. Green Lantern turned to Superman. We need your help getting Niaz, Hal spoke. Why? Superman questioned. The Guardians want to meet him, Hal answered. Who? Superman asked, genuinely not knowing. The Guardians are the protectors of the universe and the founders of Green Lantern's Corp. They keep peace in the universe, Hal explained. Big stuff. Why do they need to see him? Superman asked. Well, Hal turned to Kilowog before answering. Niaz is from an extinct species that is a threat to the universe. The Guardians asked me to bring him. So, you are here to arrest him, Superman pointed. Yes, Hal revealed. Just tell me where he is. I will take him and bring him back safely. Mars, Superman answered. Where did you think I checked first? His annoying at I said he was not there, Hal said. Clark hummed as he expanded his senses to cover the whole planet. He was seeing and hearing things from across the world, and he focused on finding a single person. Would you like some tea? Yes, ma'am. Superman found Zion in Kansas. Chapter 67. Departure. Zion calmly sipped on the green tea. Martha had given him since he would be waiting for the dinner to be ready. Zion sat in silence, waiting for the guests to arrive. Zion drank the last bit and placed the cup on the side table. Zion let out an appreciative sigh. The tea was good. You haven't left? Kara asked as she walked down. Kara was out of her costume and in her home mode. She wore an oversized t-shirt with I Love Metropolis and a denim shorts. She looked like any normal girl from a city as she looked at Zion with her questioning gaze. Zion scanned her from head to toe. Suits you. Kara lifted her brow, questioning his answer. She wanted to know why the guy who runs the world is sitting here. Kara saw Zion lift his hand with 3 fingers pointing, and began to fold it one by one. 1, 2, 3. Ring ring. Kara snapped her head toward the door, her gaze penetrating the wooden door and gazing directly at the person. She met Superman's gaze, which was also looking straight at her. Superman gave a nod and opened the door. Who is it, honey? Martha's voice came from the kitchen. It's Kal-El, Kara answered, and heard the surprised sound of Martha. Kara turned to Zion, her eyes sharp. Zion just smiled. Kara then turned to Superman, who let himself in, followed by Green Lantern. GL scanned the simple house as he followed Superman. He didn't know why Superman had brought him here. Kilowog waited outside, watching in case of an ambush. Kara, Superman greeted. Clark. Martha came out of the kitchen. Mom, Superman gave a soft smile. You surprised me. Martha checked Superman for any injuries. She always made sure her boy was okay, even though he was indestructible. I am fine, Mom, Clark answered. I came to meet Zion. Superman turned his gaze to the young man sitting at the couch of his house as if he didn't own the world. Zion just shrugged at his gaze and got up. It seems like work had caught up to me, Zion spoke. Forgive me for not staying to dine. It's fine, Martha answered. You can always come later. Then allow me to leave. Zion was being very respectful. He nodded to Superman and Kara before walking towards GL and gestured him to follow. Zion and GL walked out of the house. I am sorry, Mom, Clark apologized. Martha caressed his cheek. It's fine, I don't mind. And I have Kara to protect me. Martha smiled. Superman turned to Kara. Keep her safe. Kara gave a nod and Superman followed out. Zion and Hal were standing on the porch, looking at the fields that covered the whole place. Clear night sky that was filled with stars. Zion looked straight into the vast space, but Hal was a bit tense. His body remembered the punch very well. His ring was pulsing with power to react to any threats. Zion, why do the Lanterns want you? Superman asked. Zion shrugged. You species is considered a threat to the universe, Kilowog answered. The Guardians demand your presence. Are you sure that you are here for me? Zion asked. You are Noise, Hal pointed. Am I? Why don't you ask your little ring? Zion suggested. Just in case you are trying to arrest an innocent person. Zion, Hal, and Superman turned to his ring. Hal lifted his hand and pointed the ring at Zion and spoke his command, identify target. A beam of light extended in Zion from up to down before it retracted back. Name. Uncone. Species. Kryptonian. Gender. Male. Bone age. 26. Match with target Inferno, Hal commanded. Target not matched. See, Zion pointed. You clearly got the wrong guy. Hal thought about it and turned to Superman. It was him we fought together, or are you lying to protect the other one? Superman sighed. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. He didn't want to oppose the Green Lanterns or reveal Zion's ability as it was his secret. He contemplated what to do when a voice answered from the behind. He can shape-shift, even his genetics, Kara answered from the door. Zion turned to Kara with a betrayed looks. Really? I am your employer. Have some work ethics, mate. Don't care. Suffer, Kara commented before she went in. Zion now turned to the two Green Lanterns boring holes in him with their gaze. Kilowog's ring flashed as he got ready to fight. Hal also fully activated his ring, lifting himself from the ground. Under the orders of the Guardian, you are under arrest, Hal spoke. Did they say to arrest me? Zion tilted his head, his eyes glowing red. Kilowog and Hal got ready to meet aggression when Superman cut in. Zion, leave with them without causing trouble. I don't want the place to be destroyed. Okay, Zion dropped the act. Let's leave the people alone and be on our way. Meet you at Mars. Zion glitched out. Damn him, Hal shouted as Zion vanished before his eyes. He ran away again. Superman sighed. Don't worry, he will come with you. But now, I hope you take your duty somewhere else. Hal nodded and floated up. Your secret is safe with me, Superman, Hal stated one last time before he flew up. The two lanterns turned into streaks of light in the sky, vanishing from his sight in a moment. It's going to be hell, Kara commented from behind. Superman turned to Kara, his face displaying his question. He knew they were coming, Kara commented. Last time he planned something, he took over the planet. Superman didn't need more word. He understood. Zion was planning something, and the lantern would give him exactly what he wanted. And they wouldn't even see it coming. Zion glitched into the control room. The white crystal room bright with blue light from the holograms. They displayed almost everything that was happening on both the planets. Zai was on constant watch for any threats that might lift its head. How is the situation? Zion asked. See for yourself. One of the holograms changed, showing the image of what was happening. He saw Senstro and Boudica flying hazardously as two condensed beam chased after them. They constructed many objects to halt its advance, yet it moved uninterrupted. The beam punctured holes through their constructs as it chased them relentlessly. The lanterns tried to hit Emitter, but the shield stopped any attack. The beam was something similar to Darkseid's Omega beam. He created it just to spite some people. Let them deal with a never-stopping beam of destruction that would follow them for eternity. Of course, they could give it another target, but it was a consciously controlled beam. Zion turned from the hologram and pressed the side of the wall. The wall sunk in, revealing a new suit embroidered with symbols of language forgotten. The whole suit came with a long overcoat, a bit special. This one was prepared for special occasions, such as meeting the Guardians of the Universe. This new suit was the peak of his now available technology. The suit increased his base strength by 10, added with kinetic technology, a solar generator and a small lightning from beyond. The suit could also tank Superman's full-force punch. The suit would protect him if he were to fight the whole Lantern Corps in their home planet. Only Mobo would give him trouble, but he was sure that he could annihilate a planet. He was not going as a human, so Laris would be the one to visit them. He was not a fool. Being a human would leave him open, and going as Inferno would put them on edge. They just need to treat him like sentient creature, not a threat. At least until he got what he wanted. Changing into the suit, he couldn't help but feel a bit annoyed at the situation. He hadn't had the time to finish his work in Earth. With Gotham being the first city to come under his rule, he needed to increase the speed at which it developed. The faster he gained control over the city, the faster he could move on with his expansion. He needed to take over the whole country first before moving way to the other. He needed the whole world united. They were divided, easily felled. They relied too much on their heroes. The corrupt ruled for too long, but not on his watch. This planet would stand together to fight any threat. They would be stronger than ever. Owns would help him achieve just that. With their biomatrix data collected, he could access the emotional spectrum. Their knowledge and power would become his, and he would put it to better use. He need to make more plans on how to deal with the other idiots that will be targeting him. His only worry was the Buzzhead. He was strong enough to defeat Darkseid. His fight with Darkseid was won, but this one would be harder. Things were moving faster, way faster. The others have arrived, Zai stated. Hal and Kilowog appeared above the Crystal City, watching as Sinestro and Boudica zigzagged across the sky, running from the laser beam that chased them relentlessly. Zion breathed out and stretched his neck and shook his muscles. Time's up, Zion muttered as the wall opened. Zion walked to the opening and floated towards the lanterns. The laser stopped chasing them, allowing them to regain their bearings. The lanterns floated still and looked confused that the laser that were chasing them have stopped. Shall we depart then? Solaris asked. The lanterns turned to him, while Boudica charged her ring to strike him. Sinestro lifted his hand to stop her. He understood why the Guardians sent them to get this man. He was dangerous. He could tell from the way he carried himself. He had not met him before, but the one before him was confident without the slightest of doubt. Let us leave. Sinestro constructed a spaceship, encasing them all in two. I hope you will not retaliate. Zion shrugged as he walked to the seat and put on the seatbelt. Sinestro watched him before he accelerated the ship. The ship turned into a beam of light as it traveled towards the center of the universe, 2OA. Chapter 68. Autism, jokes. Zion yawned, his mind bored. The ship was traveling at near light speed, but it was slow compared to the cosmic distance they need to cover. It had been 30 since start of the travel, going opposite, out of the solar system. And Zion was starting to get bored of the monotonous ride. Getting ready to jump, Boudica spoke from the front. Hal and Sinestro sat opposite him, watching him with alertness. Kilowog sat with Boudica piloting the ship. The ship brightened up for a moment before it displayed itself in spacetime. The boom of space displacing itself caused Solaris' ears to ring. He turned his eyes away from the lanterns, his gaze looking past the ship into the space. A green flourishing planet, its oceans forming the green lantern symbol with water that was visible from space. The planet was filled with life, most of it occupied by natural fauna and flora, while at the center of the lantern was the metropolis. The circle was filled with towering skyscrapers with a giant lantern at the center standing tall as the guiding light. The building were golden green. The advanced architecture was breathtaking, creating an interconnected monolith. This is Green Lantern Corp. This is the center of the universe. This was the home of the Guardians. He could already feel the energy pulsing out of the planet, the vitality of will. His goal for the day was near. The power he wanted was close. He could feel it in his grasp. The ship lowered in altitude before it dispelled on the air above the metropolis. Green Lantern was about to give him a lift, but he managed himself. He scanned the ground, watching many lanterns move above, going in and out of the massive lantern. With the click of his shoes, he landed on the very grounds of OA. Solaris pocketed his hands into his long coat as it fluttered in the wind. Follow, Sinestro commanded. Solaris didn't comment on his command and followed him. Flanked by other. Sinestro took him through a lawn hall with massive pillars before he brought him to the council. The massive room with a floating disc was filled with blue dwarfs. Solaris' smile changed to that of absolute confidence. His stride were filled with power. His eyes turned serious as he met eyes with the Guardians. He was not here as prisoner, but as equal, on business. Hello, Guardians. Zion waved at the Guardians. He is not an Inferno, one of the Guardians pointed. The Guardians with their extensive knowledge and power could tell that Solaris was not an Inferno, but a Kryptonian. Hal moved forward at that question. He is the one I fought, I confirmed it. He has the power to manipulate his DNA or something. At Hal's answer, the Guardians turned to Solaris. Is it true? Maybe. Solaris shrugged. The Guardians turned to each other, discussing telepathically among themselves. How did you obtain the data need to change yourself to an Inferno? Other Guardians asked. How many knows of them? How many have you reproduced? Solaris faked a flitch. Ooh, too much questioning. Why? Are you scared your dirty hands would be revealed? He questioned. What was done had to be done, the Guardian refuted. Yeah, genetically modifying a race so they would evolve into lesser versions of themselves and create a strife where they would try to kill each other over skin color. Cool. Solaris' words dripped with sarcasm. They were not lesser, they were better. They were more peaceful than the Infernos. Peaceful. Peaceful race the near got wiped out due to your mishandling. A peace that drove a whole species to a near extinction. Solaris turned his head and met all the Guardians' gaze. For the same peace you hid your bloodied hands and act all noble on your high horses. You all are nothing but a bunch of little coward. Suits your stature should I say. Solaris gave a mocking grin. Silence, the voice boomed. You do not understand. The consequences of our inaction would have been dire. The Infernos would have spread across galaxies, spreading never-ending terror. Well, what about the Manhunters? Solaris asked, drowning the council in silence. They were your creation who now wants to only end all life. What about the Sector 666 and all its people who got massacred? Who is going to pay for that? The Lanterns looked shocked at the information, turning to Guardians to explanation. But Solaris didn't allow for them to speak more. What about the Pigeons? You created them and now you hide your shame while they do horrible experiment in their sector? What of Korna? What about the impurity in the central battery? What about the limiter in the ring which caused the death of many valiant Lanterns? What of their deaths which are in millions? What of the other emotional spectrum? What about the war of light and the darkest night? What about the new gods, Darkseid, who want to enslave all life? What about the magic you seal away in fear of it? You hide many things from you own while abandoning the emotions that give your powers. You have only hidden your dirty hands, your mistakes, appearing as if you are nobles, but you are, again, nothing but a bunch of cowards. Silence. Your inactions have already done too much damage. How many are you willing to sacrifice? How many do you want to die in your name? How many more? Solaris lowered his head. His face darkened by shadow. You sealed your powers on fear, but I will use them for good. Solaris lifted his head, a victorious smile plastered on his lips. Thank you for granting me access to one of the sever forces of the universe. The Guardians got up in alert, finally remembering his powers. The Lanterns moved to intercept, but a golden light flashed, stunning all that were present. A wave of power exploded in the epicenter of the light, pushing all to the wall. The light dimmed, revealing a bluish dwarf with black hair. His dress was tight-fit with his long coat unchanged. His body was not even thin like the other Guardians but buff with vitality and power. black coat fluttered in the wind as will radiated from him with absolute force. He looked at his hands, his innate power expanding tremendously. With such power you could have ended many war by just being a deterrent. You do not understand the power that you try to control, the Guardian spoke. Zion grinned, which unnerved the lantern since no one had ever seen a Guardian grin. I do. Zion reached the depth of his mind, opening the black door for some help. He then reached into the emotional spectrum, his will connecting to its endless power. In the brightest day, in the blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. A green light exploded, a force unmatched raged like unbridled tide, ripping and destroying the very fabric of space. The whole main building exploded in a brilliant catastrophe, a storm of will raging at its center. The lanterns moved in urgency to respond to the attack. But the minute they put their will into the ring, it was drained. The force that create the ring was returning to its source. The will was being drawn from all the source it could be found. Even the central battery was drained of its power. At the center of its all, Zion watched as the will take form of a celestial whale that expanded across the time and space, from the birth of sentience to the end of it all. Ion. Embodiment of will. Follow. Zion commanded with the combined will of soulbounds. The whale wailed before the whole energy began to condense, changed from a raging force to a calm sea, hiding its powerful currents. The energy reduced to a side of a ring that spun at mid-air before the Zion, levitating above his hand. You, Guardian who were able to protect themselves from the explosion, watched in horror. They could feel the power contained within that ring. Such power, if interrupted, would erase the whole galaxy. Zion hummed as the will finally came under his control, but he wasn't done. In the fearful day, in raging night, with strong hearts full, our souls ignite. When all seems lost in the war of light, look at the stars, for hope burns bright. This time when he finished, a blue calming light flooded forth, one that glowed bright blue and filled the hearts of all that were present with hope. The light swirled and churned like the cosmic winds before it took the form of the three-headed bird that expanded its wing beyond death. This was Adara, the embodiment of emotion hope. Believe, Zion asked. The light began to condense, turning into a ring that encased the green ring, empowering it. The two emotions rotated independent of each other, encasing and enhancing each other. Tor Lorik San, Bor Nakamor, Natramo Fon Tornek what you are. To Lantern Ker Lo Obensa, Ton Lek Lek Nok, for Moro sir. A soft indigo expanded from Zion, covering all that within its calming light. No force or pressure was felt. It asked not for force but compassion. The light took the form of an octopus-looking created, its tendrils extending across all species. This was proselyte, the embodiment of compassion. Support. The ring of compassion formed, orbiting under the protection of will and hope. For hearts long lost and full of fright, for those alone in blackest night, accept our light and join our fight. Love conquers all, with violet light. This time a violet light burst forth, rippling and thumping like the loudest drum. It was the drum of a heart filled with love. The violet rose to the sky, taking the form of an insect, predator, the embodiment of love. Cherish. The violet light encased all, amplifying their affection. But before things could go wrong, the light was encased in will, creating the fourth ring that spun at high speed, creating a gyroscope that spun infinity. Zion didn't need to recite the oath, but it helped him focus on the emotion that he needed to push to control. He stopped his chant as he was being overwhelmed with emotions. His mind was feeling the strain of such power, and the next emotion was fear. Fear was something that soul bones don't exhibit. They fear no evil nor are they ever afraid. But they do fear something, a fear of loss. Loss of something dear. Hoo-hoo, Zion breathed out. What you are doing is madness. A voice stopped his thoughts. Zion turned to see the battered guardians who were surrounding him, radiating power. They were tapping into their lost power, regaining strength. They were preparing to stop Zion at his madness. No sentient being should be able to handle that much power, even at their diluted from, it would erase. Zion smirked. What, trying to stop me? You do not have the capabilities, nor does your lanterns. Zion had already broken all the lantern ring on OA when he summoned Ion. We will, the guardians rose, ready to fight to death. Zion scanned everyone. He smirked and forced the will he possessed. Kneel. A command to overwrite, to kneel, through the emotions that connected all sentience. This titanic will forced at hand, causing all that was around him to kneel, wanted or not. Hal Jordan, Sinestro and the guardians resisted him with all their mind, but their body creaked as it lowered itself. Let me finish what I began, Zion stated. In blackest day, in brightest night, beware your fears made into light. Let those who try to stop what's right, burn like my power, fear's might. A yellow light beckoned like an earthquake, like the very earth shaking in fear. The light reached up, before it turned right, summoning Parallax. Parallax fought back the summon, yellow light under his command, yet will and hope surpassed and suppressed him. Surrender, Zion spoke fear. The fearful parasite sealed in the light of green and blue, encompassed by indigo and violet. What's mine is mine, AMD mine and mine. And mine and mine and mine. Not yours. An orange light coiled around Zion, cowering everything in its light greedily. It was as if it was making all that present its. The coiling surrounded the whole planet, taking the form of a serpent that coiled the whole world. Ophidian. The embodiment of avarice. Covet, Zion spoke. The snake uncoiled before it formed the sixth ring. With blood and rage of crimson red, ripped from a corpse so freshly dead, together with our hellish hate, we'll burn you all, that is your fate. A red light like a raging tornado from the depths of hell. A roar that spoke endless anger. A red bull with 4 horns. The pure anger radiating off the being caused the people who gazed at him have their blood drained. This was the embodiment of anger. The butcher. Submit. The rage-filled bull wanted to fight, but the other emotions suppressed it to submit. The bloody wind vanished as the seven ring formed, floating before Zion, each emotion amplifying and balancing the other. The perfect harmony, yet he was not done. Chapter 69. 69. Sentinel. Is he dead? No, his vitals are active. Sentinel's bionic voice echoed in the dark alley, cutting the eerie silence. The man hung by the scruff of his dirty cheap sweater under the hands of the Sentinel. His cheap sweater made some tearing marks under his body strain, adding more to the worn-out sweater. The Sentinel turned the hanging body, scanning the man's vitals. The man's heart was beating weakly, nearly no fat, even malnourished, some poorly patched wounds that were on the verge of infection and some broken bones. The Sentinel sighed in relief as a gesture of its resume being not marked with a dead human. Put the man down. A growling voice came from the shadow. The Sentinels turned his head to the shadow. Its eyes were not hindered by darkness, revealing a figure clad in darkness with a bat on his chest. The Sentinel immediately recognized the figure. Batman. The Sentinel spoke. The Batman just silently gazed as the Sentinel. The two exchanged no more words, silently staring at each other. The emotionless blue versed the cowled. The Sentinel silently put the man in a force field to his back. A bubble encased the man in fetal position and attached him to the Sentinel's back. His actions were as it was only normal and was not intimidated by Batman. He was a Sentinel. He is not scared of a man cosplaying Bat and running around midnight. The Sentinel turned without a word and took to the sky. Batman could clearly see the man being kept at the force field, like a stasis. He stood there as he watched the Sentinel vanish among the high-rise building of Gotham. They seemed to be doing a good job. Penny one. Batman turned back into the shadow, but not deep enough. He vanished into the shadow. The Sentinel carried the man to a nearby shelters they had established. The Sentinel landed on the pavement before the new shelter, scaring the people who were standing around. The shelter was a bit white building, newly painted and all. At the top was a golden cross that signified the shelter. The building was practically new. The remodeling team rebuilt a new internal structure and expanded, taking the two building to the side of the shelter. The bright white was like sore thumb among the dark and giddy structures of Gotham. The Sentinel established the shelters shortly after arriving at Gotham. Commissioner Gordon have yet to find people who were willing to pair up with the Sentinel. The Sentinels used the abandoned homeless shelters in Gotham. These shelters were abandoned due to the gangs trying to use it for their work. The pressured staffs left and no new ones came, leaving the shelters with a lack of manpower, prompting it to close. But now the building were free and unoccupied, Zai decided to use it. Sentinels need not worry about gangs. They would take care of the minor inconveniences. Zion had already taken with the mayor, and he would be resigning after compiling his mess. He also picked out some candidates who would fit the position better. The front door slid open at the Sentinel's approach. A small bot, white with black lines, that looked like R2-B2 appeared from the inside. Sentinel removed the man from his back and handed him to the small robot. The robot carried the man as if he waited nothing and returned. The bot would take care of the man and keep him fed. This whole shelter was run by these small bots since they lacked human manpower. The people would be taken care of and when they are top shape they will be found a job where they can sustain life. Zion didn't want people thinking that the shelter is a free food service. This shelter is for people who are struggling and those with petty crimes. Here they could change their lives instead of going to prison. The Gotham PD was already stressed enough. He didn't need to send more work their way. They can deal with the serious ones. The Sentinel turned and walked away from the shelter, taking a new patrol route to keep watch of the area. The people on the empty streets scurried about, not wanting to be near the metal giant. The Sentinel cared not for that and kept walking. He need to keep the streets clean. Is this gone? A man wearing a black ski hat asked, shivering due to the coldness of the night and nervousness. The other wearing a similar hat with big brown jacket looked down at his phone, waiting for the signal. Are we really planning on attacking the shelter? A third asked, wearing a similar outfit. This is nuts, a fourth shrieked in panic. He killed criminals like ants and threatened the big head at their home ground. What do you think he is going to do if we attack his place? Calm down, the second slapped the man on the back. We are already committed. Black Mask would kill us if we backed out now. The other nodded their head in agreement. Each of them had something owed to Black Mask and they were now paying it back. This was their assignment, to attack the shelter as a retaliation against the new king's rule. Bas. The phone vibrated and the man looked at the message. He looked at the other. Get the gears. The others moved and removed the lid of the craters, revealing a high-tech guns. This was the weapon Black Mask had given them for this assignment. The guns looked really expensive, letting them know that this was a serious weapon. Ready? He asked. The rest who were silent walked from the darkness and took the weapons. About 22 were armed with the new weapons, ready to use it. They all nodded. Okay, we hit, break as much as we can and leave quickly as possible, the man noted. If the plan doesn't go well, disperse. The men then rushed from the alley to the streets with the guns powered up. They formed a line across the street before they took aim at the shelter. The 20 or so blaster charging up lit the street, and the people who noticed the gang ran away immediately. Gothamites have strong life-saving instincts. Pew 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 pew. The shots were fired, the power behind the blasters pushing the men off their feet, some even thrown back. The men watched expectantly as the blue ray collided with the shelter. They waited for an impact, an explosion, for destruction. Yet none of their expectations were met. The blue ray dispersed without causing any damage or effect. They just dissipated as if water on a furnaces, turned it to steam. Aggression detected. Neutralize. The men who took the shot were confused and shocked, looking at their weapons as if they were toys. The high-tech gun did nothing. Absolutely nothing. It couldn't even scratch the paint off the surface. With the realization that they were duped and sacrificed, the men threw their weapons and dispersed. Yet they could not take 2 steps before the retaliation shots were fired. All the men turned to cube and fell to the floor with a click. The blue glowing cubes and the thrown gun was the only evidence of the transgression. No damage or impact frames, just silent retaliation. Task complete. Clean trash. The shelter's doors slid open and a single sphere bot told out of the door. The bot rolled straight until it was sitting on the middle road before it extended its telekinetic field and captured all the evidence and rolled back into the shelter. The road was clean of any evidence and was back to normal. Those who were hiding were shocked to see how fast the things were resolved. They couldn't believe that a gang attack had ended in a moment. Normally, this kind of threat would have taken hours before Batman came to solve it. But there was not need for that now. The information on the attackers were informed to the Sentinels and they immediately tracked down the subject's identity, where the weapons came from and where they met today. With all the cross-reference they found the guy who gave them weapons, who he was, where he was and is now. It took less than 2 seconds to get all the information on the guy. Name: Roman Siones. Identity: Black Mask. Crimes: organized crime, murder and torture, kidnapping, bank robbery, arson, human trafficking, assassination, racketeering, drug manufacturing and distribution, fraud, terrorism, bribery, counterfeiting, illegal weapon sales. Location: the Black Mask Club, East End. Sentence: eliminate. Commencing protocol. Commencing mission year 0. Punish all criminals. Sentence: eliminate. Targets: Oswald Cobblepot, Penguin, Edward Nygma, Riddler, Harvey Dent, Two-Face, Selina Kyle, Catwoman, Jervis Tetch, the Mad Hatter, Harleen Quinzel, Harley Quinn, Hugo Strange, Victor Zayas, Arnold Weskier the Ventriloquist, Garfield Linz, Firefly, Julian Day, Calendar Man, Lonnie McKin, Anarchy, Dumfree and Deaver Tweed, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Flacone, Maroni, Viti, Galante, Bertinelli Crime Families. All the targets were established and found. The mission commenced earlier than intended due to Black Mask's intervention of trying to check out the shelter's defense. The Sentinels were supposed to concentrate on establishing order before apprehending the criminals. But well, they messed up. Showing retaliation against a guy who thought them as noting but trash means a clean-up. The Sentinels all received their orders and began to move immediately. They were strong in advance enough to take on an army alone. They now only need to take out petty criminals with primitive weaponry and meat sacks for army. They were nothing but standing targets. Batman swung through the dark skeet of Gotham, his cape whistling through the air. He rolled on the roof to break his fall and sprinted across the roof before he jumped across the edge. He was hunting, tracking, following his target. A Sentinel. Gordon had informed him of the mission the Sentinels have received. He only got a notice due to him being the commissioner. Just a note. Sentinels only got orders from Zion or Zai. No one else could command them. They were sentient soldiers with an undying loyalty. With Gordon informing Batman, he immediately began to follow the Sentinel closest to him. The Sentinel which was standing still and just observing began to move. The people who were near freaked out, but calmed when it moved away from them. The Sentinel marched through the near-empty street, its slightly smaller body shifting as the nanobot rearranged itself for combat. Its frame thinned, allowing for mobility. Its hands shifted a bit, the weapons underloading up. This was an elimination. The Sentinel then turned to the ally, its colors darker to blend with the night. The blue eyes turned dark. The Sentinel climbed the stairs silently, its heavy metallic body almost weightless. Its body twisted and turned like a perfect barley dancer, its limbs following a smooth motion. Batman recognized the building. His hands moved quicker as he shot his grappling hook to the top. He jumped off the roof, the grapple pulling his body faster. He latched onto the fire exit, climbing it faster, parkour though it to reach the destination. The Sentinel already arrived at the target's location. The target was wearing a messy t-shirt, and was in her underwear. She was slouching like a cat, drinking warm milk. Her head turned and looked to her window, her senses tingling of dang. Her eyes widened as a shock plastered to her face. The dark figure looking through the window, standing so tall that it was bent inhumanly to gaze at her. No words were spoken. The hunter was here to catch the prey and the twisty little cat won't be escaping. Chapter 70. 70 White and Black. Sorry guys, I am exhausted after work. It's free today, I was able to write it. The blinding violent lights died as the 7 no emotions gathered at his hand. The Guardians were frightened by such display of power, to gather all that power in one hand. They feared the effect of such power on a mind, power of corruptions, and they were not prepared to deal with such threats. Their powers have not returned fully. They didn't want another Volthoom. They were not ready to fight another bloody war. They should not have led him to OA. Zion looked to his hands. He was holding the very power of the cosmos, just a few steps shy from total control. He could not yet access the hidden forces that are sealed within the source wall. They should forever be kept there. The hidden forces were dangerous. A single moment of weakness would doom the universe. Zion now turned to different emotions, ones that were prevalent yet not so seen. First came the light of joy, a golden light like a comforting morning breeze. In the light of joy, we find our way, bringing brightness to each day. With happiness, our guiding ray, we rise, come what may. The sparkling light showered OA in its brilliance, condensing to a small form of a golden figure, one similar to a child. The ethereal being radiated boundless joy, one that was pure as a child's. This was embodiment of joy, euphoria. Come, Zion requested. The child giggles as she condensed into ring forming around will and love. The guardians were overwhelmed. The new light had been condensed. A new force awakened. Zion wasn't done yet. In shadows deep, our hearts mourn, through grief and loss, our strength born. With sorrow's power, we sworn, flickering lights, guide the forlorn. A grey light flooded OA, drowning all in sorrow, dragging their sorrows out. Many collapsed, crying in sheer sadness of their fates. They could not even look up. The sadness hidden deep overwhelmed them. The light condensed to a form of a curled-up snail, radiating a sorrow of loss. Zion didn't command it as it condensed next to compassion and hope, creating the 10th ring, a major part of the emotional spectrum. This should be enough. With it, Zion now had all the light he needed to call upon life. With the lights gathered, she would be attracted here. A moment later a white light of life encompassed OA. Unlike before, Zion was drawn into the light, untrapped by his control. The light of life was powerful, more than the emotions. Light that birthed it all. Zion surrounded by white light stood alone. Why have you called upon me? A voice asked. The war of light not yet here. Zion turned. His eyes met with the one that looked similar to the own's. But he knew she doesn't look like that. It's a form that she had taken the form of the oldest life forms of the universe. The war will not arrive, Zion stated. I know, she agreed. Yet, war of light is inevitable. The blackest night must be defeated. He will be, Zion spoke, confident. Join my quest, become the spear that will end the night. The entity looked at Zion, to his soul and emotions. She could see the lives he held, ones that were beyond this universe. Each a complexity than those that lived here. Yet she could not see death in them. No, they have defeated death many times. Yes, these live-held live of millions, a web that spread across the omniverse. I shall lend you my powers, Zion. She answered. Zion nodded and felt her presence condense. The white light condensed into the 11th ring, encompassing the emotions, containing it all within it. With the white light condensed, Zion's preparations were done. Zion took a step forward, crossing many spatial units in a moment and clasped his hand around the fleeing object. The instant he touched, the black light tried to seep into his body, to gain control. But others' lights rippled the darkness, battling its control. Zion didn't wait and slapped the object into the spinning rings of light. The black ring of death dissolved into pure black as it was imprisoned within the rings. Zion began to force his will into the light, connecting to the concept of death. All turned void as a black skeleton appeared. Holding its switch, it looked down at Zion, its predatory eyes looking to consume Zion. Yet, Zion was protected by the white light and the assistance of the other emotions increased its strength. Kneel, Zion ordered. Chains manifested in the void, its clanging echoing in time. The sheer force used here would be enough to move a solar system. Each chain this and strong bound Necron, the embodiment of death. The blackest night. The chains pulled. Necron retaliate. Yet he couldn't retaliate. He was weak and his powers were countered by life. The chain pulled, dragging Necron to his new prison within the rings. The black dissolved, the darkness of death sealed. Zion now stood at the empty space, far away from any life. Necron was good at hiding. If he hadn't felt the ring, it would have ran away. Zion now held the power of a cosmic force, one powerful force of the universe that governs sentient. Zion reached to his hand and pulled the spearhead of destiny. The nth metal shaft will not be needed anymore. Zion closed his other hand, compressing all the power into a single sphere. The sphere had a white outlive with a black fill with different color specks floating in them. Life and death and the emotions in between. The sphere morphed, turning Ito a shaft, perfect for the spearhead. Zion brought the spearhead near the shaft. Tendrils of black and white extended from the shaft. They sung into the spearhead, connecting with the divinity in the spear. The space rippled as the forces coiled. Essence of life and death existed in the spear, bonding with the white and black. The spearhead fitted perfectly OT the shaft. A new weapon formed. A new spear of destiny. Far more powerful than before. One that was just shy of ready to slay some fake gods. He feared only one god and those faker would meet his blade. Zeus would be the one to trouble him, then the main faker of other pantheons. He hoped they would not come after him because he needs some powered fighters in his army. He didn't want to end a whole set of pantheons because their head couldn't think. Zion shrunk the spear and hung in on his waist. He need not worry of who would steal it. No one could touch his weapon. Zion took another step, reaching OA. He returned above where he summoned the entities. The whole city was a mess. The earthquakes he had sent with each summons had caused too much damage, non-irreparable. Yet he felt a bit guilty. Zion willed, forcing reality to shift and return the place to what it was before. The building were restored in a moment as if they never broke. Those that were recovering from the destruction watched in awe as all of it vanished. The guardians looked to the sky, watching the tall figure who stood confidently. They now regretted bringing him to OA. Their arrogance had clouded their judgment. Maybe sealing their emotions and acting as if it all just inevitable had corrupted their judgment. Maybe Ganthit and said were right? They have lost their ways. Maybe the peace they have is nothing but a fragile shell. Guardians, your purpose is not yet done, Zion spoke as he turned to the side, where space torn open. From the space appeared the Zamarons. The tall and slender blue females, counterpart of the Guardians. They were different than the Guardians, who had changed their appearance in the eon of their existence. They appeared back in OA after staying separated from the affairs of the Guardians. They weren't here for the Guardians, their leader clad in the power of Violet. It was dim and drained, the crystal shattered in her hand. They were here to find the reason. Another two appeared. These looked like guardians, yet they wore blue robes and used the power of hope. They were beckoned by the light of hope. Thank you for gathering here, Zion spoke with authority. I hope you all will drop your differences and work for the betterment of the universe. Zion wasn't asking. The Maltusians didn't answer. They understood the one before them held so much power, incomparable to the one they hold. There was no defying, there was not fighting. They could only choose to compromise. Zion looked away from them to all those that stood below, in their original form without their uniform. Their rings were destroyed when he summoned Ion. He willed the power from the spear, forming new rings for the lanterns. The rings glowed with different colors, ones with even mixed colors. The hundreds of rings floated like stars before him. Go, choose your champions, Zion ordered. The rings shivered before they flew away from him. These new rings had little limitations, yet harder restrictions to use. They rings would choose only the best of champions, who would stand true in a fight. Those that truly felt the emotions with untapped potential. The rings flew and choose their new champions, the new lanterns who will fight for peace of this universe. They would become heroes. Some rings chose the former lanterns, including Hal, Sinestro, Bukika and Kilowog. They gained different rings. Hal gained will, Kilowog hope with the specks of will, Boudica anger, Sinestro fear and will. Some more were also chosen and other flew to the space, to find their new champions. Zion brought a new age of lanterns. The champions will be brought here to train them well, Zion gave them orders before vanishing. The Maltusians were silent. The lanterns turned to Guardians for explanations. The Guardians looked at each other. They have to deal with the mess now. They all collectively agreed to follow, to continue what they did before, to protect peace. This is a message to all lanterns, gather. The Guardians sent a message. Zion appeared back home. His room in the Crystal City. He de-transformed, returning to his human form. His cloths returned to normal. He removed the long coat and threw it to the hanger. He stretched his neck, his face relaxing. He reached for the spear at his hip and laid it on the table next to him. He walked forth and dropped to the couch, one long and comfy, created just for him to have the most comfortable sleep. Meow. A cat meowed. Zion turned his head to the sound. The white and gray cucking cat with strips running all over its body lazily walked towards him. It then jumped up, landing on his chest. It laid down without a care, purring as he strokes its back. The cat closed its eyes, going into sleep mode. Zion looked at his cat. Let's sleep then, Ian. Zion closed his eyes, his hands gently stroking his cat's. The two drifted to sleep, Zion in the warmth and purring of his cat and Ian in the warmth and heartbeat of his owner. Zai, who watched this, didn't disturb Zion. But he really was in a pickle. Superman had come to the city with Wonder Woman and he doesn't look pleased. I mean, who would not be when everyone who wants to meet Zion go to him? Chapter 71. 71. Quest. Diana left the temple with a complicated expression. The Olympians had given her a quest instead of answers. A quest to hunt a man who had overpowered her with power. But they had given her their blessings, strengthened her body, and blessed her armor. Is everything all right, Diana? Queen Hippolyta, her mother, asked. Diana looked up, her eyes revealing her turmoil. The gods have given me a quest. Her mother dazed for a moment before she reined in her emotions. She was not the queen for nothing. Yet, a quest from the gods had not been given since the age of man. They had mostly stopped interacting with mortals. But a quest given should not be underestimated. The queen nodded her head. She could do nothing but pray. The quest was Diana's alone, for her to complete, and the gods gave nothing for free. She hoped that her daughter would be strong. The quests given by the Olympians were always hard, almost impossible, but the valiant could conquer such trials. Do not worry, mother. All I need to do is bring him to the island, Diana assured. Beware, nothing is easy, Diana, the queen warned. I will prepare things for your departure. Diana nodded. I will get ready. The two women then walked out of the temple, separating as the queen went to complete her duty and prepare for her daughter's departure. Diana returned to her room in the castle to check her blessed armor. Her metal armor didn't have any special effects like glowing or stardust. She didn't think much and wore her armor. She sheathed her sword and bound her shield. She needed to finish this quest as fast as possible so she could receive her answers. But to defeat Zion, she might need to get good, winky face. Diana returned to her mother, who was waiting by an empty spot. Diana knew what was parked there. The invisible plane. She had left it parked there since her return. She walked to her mother, who was holding a belt. Mother, Diana called. Diana, Hippolyta answered. This is for you. Diana looked at the golden belt with beautiful patterns. At its center a bird cradling a burning flame. Mother, this. Diana recognized the item. Wear this, my child. You will need all the strength, Hippolyta spoke with a mother's grace, yet her voice was firm, accepting no rejection. Diana didn't speak more and accepted the belt, wearing it on her hip. The belt twisted around her hip and fit perfectly. Diana didn't immediately feel the difference. She had yet to activate the artifact. The belt was the belt of Gia, which gives immense strength to the wearer, which had helped Hippolyta defeat Hercules. I will take my leave, mother, Diana said before she boarded the plane. She was visible through the invisible plane and took to the skies. Diana returned to the base in DC. She immediately met up with Trevor, who had returned from a long meeting with the high chairs. He had been called to these meetings since his return from Mars. They had asked him about Nyan's technology and capabilities. They had drilled him with questions for something that could give them a way to defeat this threat. Yet, all he could give was nothing. He could not give more information than they already knew. The team he was leading, and he was knocked out the moment they touched the black grounds. They had no memories after that. Then, when he woke up, he was sent to DC. Trevor also learned that Diana was well and had to leave home in urgency. He was disappointed that she had left without a word, but he also understood her. So, he was elated when she came back searching for him. "Trevor, you are well," Diana spoke to the short man. "I am." Trevor had to look up to speak. "Did you find what you were looking for?" "I have not gotten the answers yet," Diana replied a little down. "But to obtain them, I need to present Nyan before my gods." "What?" Trevor freaked but calmed his voice and pulled Diana aside. "What do you mean by that?" "I have been given a quest by the gods to bring Nyan to Themyscira," Diana repeated. "It is my quest, and I shall complete it with the blessing of the gods." Trevor lifted his hand to stop Diana and rubbed his head due to the forming headache. "First, your gods are real? The Olympians?" "Yes, they are. I have assured you many times," Diana answered. Trevor wanted a drink, but he decided to continue. "And they asked you to capture Nyan, the guy who is basically the Emperor of Earth?" "Yes," Diana answered. "Diana, have you even met the guy? I saw his fight a giant in a planet-shattering fight." Trevor had seen the footage from Metropolis, at least the blurry clips of it. And if he were to go by the reports and analysis, they did break the planet. "I do. I have fought him and sadly, I have been defeated," Diana replied. "But I shall not lose this time. The gods have blessed me." "Ugh," Trevor groaned. From the tone Diana was talking, she was going to go even if he tried to stop her. He hated how stubborn she was. Since he didn't know how to stop her, he decided that he could at least help her resolve this peacefully. "I will help you," Trevor said. "This will be dangerous," Diana spoke. She didn't want Trevor endangered. "I can't stop you, might as well join you." Trevor resigned himself and turned back to the office. "Come, I will find a way to meet him peacefully." Diana followed Trevor. Trevor called some people and found a way to contact the king. The governments had no way of contact. The contact with the top authority was one way, but the analysts found a way. It was to contact the Sentinels in Gotham. Since the Sentinels were under his direct command, they should have direct contact. "I might have found a way," Trevor turned to Diana. "We need to go to Gotham." "Okay," Diana agreed, "but let us get some help." "Help?" Trevor asked. "Superman." Diana walked forward. And that's how all things came to be. Diana met with Superman by literally shouting his name, causing Clark to take leave. She also then informed him of her quest, which made Superman, who understood Zion's importance as the ruler, come with her to Gotham. They came to Gotham and met a Sentinel near the shelter. They were then teleported to Crystal City. Superman was annoyed by the fact that Zion had yet to return from his trip with the Green Lanterns and he was now here on leave. "So why don't you take a seat, Superman?" Zai pointed to the couch. "Please, I will arrange some cuisines. I have some of the best chefs." "Zai, where is Zion?" Superman cut to the chase. "He just returned from the meeting with the Guardians and is taking a rest," Zai replied. "He seems really tired." "It is fine, I can wait for him," Diana spoke up. Superman looked at Zai. He needed to know something. He wanted to know what Zion was doing. He had read the reports that Lois had collected after the Sentinels took control. Gotham's crime rate is now 0. The big heads were taken down, and the small tails were cut off. There was no one to run the underworld, or more like the underworld didn't exist. He had talked with Kara and Lois about Nyan. Both seemed supportive of him. He also had checked the world. Nyan was doing more good than any government had ever done. He had stopped wars, sent supplies to impoverished nations, and even established methods to cultivate food on their own. Nyan was making the world a better place than any before him. He was not just fighting some supervillains and calling himself a hero. He was changing the world. He was even helping North Korea, yet no one knows about it. So, he can't let some gods mess with it. "You can leave, Superman. We will take care of it," Zai assured. Superman nodded. He trusted Nyan. He had already fought with unfathomable beings. Superman was then teleported away, leaving Diana and Trevor alone with Zai. "Well, why don't I show you around? It sure would be boring if you stay in a cooped-up space." Zai turned to the door, which slid open silently. The duo followed Zai out of the room, which led to a pristine hallway and an elevator. They ascended for a few minutes before the elevator stopped. The doors slid open slowly, revealing another hallway. They traversed the hallway, seeing the light dim and the red sky at the end. They crossed the hallway and arrived at a familiar structure, the Roman Colosseum. The whole Colosseum was crystal white with red sand on the ground grinding against their feet. And they were not alone in the Colosseum. Sounds of clashing weapons and shouts of anger filled the Colosseum. Wonder Woman turned to the sound, watching as a woman backflipped away from an array of attacks. She was immediately followed as one used a whip to lash at her while the other shot arrows at her. But the woman deflected the attacks with her weapons and landed. She immediately lifted her weapon and met the twin blades from slicing her head. She twisted her club, moving the force away from her before kicking the attacker away. She then smashed the arrows that came towards her, but her weapon was wrapped by the enemy's whip. Lashina pulled, trying to remove the weapon from Barda's hands, but she was outmatched. Barda grabbed the whip and pulled. Lashina was easily lifted off her feet and got a club to her face. With Lashina thrown away, Gilatina rushed with Artemis as her assist. The arrows flew from weird angles while Gilatina aimed for the openings. Barda moved nimbly around the arrows and clashed with Gilatina, even redirecting the arrows towards her. The exchange continued and Barda outsmarted the duo at every turn, keeping them on edge before she went full force and clobbered both Gelatina and Artemis. She also bloodied and bruised Lashina, who woke up in the middle. With the three out of the fight, Barda stood tall with her weapon. Mr. Miracle popped up with a shower of glitter, handing Barda a bottle of water. They still wouldn't listen, huh? He said as he received the bottle from Barda. It's not easy to break the centuries of brainwashing, Barda sighed, trying not to show her frustrations. She had been trying to make them understand, but they always tried to fight her. So Zion let them have their weapons and fight it until they couldn't. She was also fine with beating the ever-living shit out of these brats. They would keep her on edge, perfect for combat at all times. She couldn't slack off. Darkseid was still alive. His threat would always be on the horizon, always, until his death. Barda, Zai called. Barda turned to Zai, noticing the duo that followed him. The man looked like a military officer, and the woman, a warrior. A warrior different from her and yet so similar. They both could tell with a look. This is Diana, Princess of the Amazons, and Steve Trevor, her handler, Zai introduced. This is Barda and Scott. It is a pleasure to meet a fellow warrior, Barda greeted. It is mine, Diana replied. The men gave an acknowledging nod to each other. Can I know who they are? Trevor questioned. Zai turned to the bloodied trio. They are the Furies of Darkseid. Barda here is tasked with cleansing their brainwashing. It has been difficult. Zai then turned to Barda. I know you have a request, but Nyan will be busy. You can tell me of your wishes and I can arrange things for you. I just wanted to ask him about Darkseid. As for my request, can we go to Earth to spend our free time? Barda asked. Of course you can, Zai agreed immediately. You can use the device I gave you to do so. I will update it with safe locations for you to travel. Thank you, Barda replied. After this, Chak wrote it without my consent. Zai nodded and then turned to Diana and Trevor. Let's continue. They moved out of the Colosseum and through another hallway that led to a vast room filled with advanced technology and a large holographic map of the world. Zai tapped a few buttons on a console, and the map zoomed in on Themyscira. We have been monitoring the activities of various regions, Zai explained. This is Themyscira, your home. We ensure that it remains protected from external threats. Diana was impressed by the level of detail and the concern shown for her homeland. Thank you for this. Zai smiled. It's the least we can do. Now, let's discuss how we can help you with your quest. As they conversed, a portal opened in the room, and a figure stepped through. It was Zion, looking tired but resolute. Zion, Diana called, stepping forward. Zion nodded. Diana, I hear you have been given a quest by the gods. Yes, Diana confirmed. I must bring you to Themyscira. Zion sight. The gods and their demands. Very well, I will accompany you. But we must ensure that our departure does not cause unnecessary alarm or disruption. Trevor interjected. We need to plan this carefully. We can't afford any mistakes. Zion agreed. Let's prepare. We leave for Themyscira at dawn. With the plan set, the group dispersed to make their final preparations. Diana felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The journey ahead would be challenging, but with Zion's help and the blessings of the gods, she felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. Chapter 72. 72, Meeting Idiots, URG, Zion groaned as he found himself being pulled from his escape. But as he turned to the side to avoid getting up, his body was pulled from the solid ground and was sucked into the abyssal maw, falling forever. Zion screamed as he extended his hand to grasp at hope. However, even as he found his grip, his mind was kicked out of the darkness. Zion blinked open his eyes, finally realizing that he was awake. Get off, a recognized voice spoke with annoyance at a close range than convenient. Zion turned his head and met Kara's eyes. Her deep blue eyes stare straight back into him. Zion's heart skipped a beat. Her face was too close. His mind kicked to overdrive and multitudes of through flew, all imaginative. Yet, Kara put a hand on his face and pushed him away, ripping him off from clinging to her. Zion was hanging on Kara's shoulders. Ripping Zion away from her and dropping him to the floor, Kara turned around to leave. Meow. An annoyed voice of a cat and its furiously lazy eyes stopped Kara in her tracks. Ian sat on the floor as it gave her the stare. He was pissed that his bed was disturbed, especially when he was sleeping on it. Kara stared at the cat and left. Zion rubbed his head and butt, a light pain telling that he was back to reality. He groaned, turned and crawled towards Ian before laying next to it and rubbing its head. He didn't want to deal with this universe now. He wanted some sleep. Why are people even causing him trouble after he became cosmically powerful? He could end the universe with a thought for Christ's sake. Zion closed his eye and tried to return to the dreamland of unknown. Zion, Diana is here at the Olympians' request, Zai spoke through without appearing. Zion hugged Ian and shut his eyes tight. Ask her to come tomorrow. Barda wants to leave for Earth. I gave her a glitcher, Zai stated and continued. Most of the prisoners are sent back to Earth. The mech morphs are chilling and the Martians are recovering. The world is at peace and will continue to be. I have also found the kids. Zion opened his eyes. Only by a slit. Zai continued. If you deal with the Olympians, we could have the time skip soon. So what you say? Urgrig, Zion groaned loudly, causing Ian to run away. Fine. I will go deal with them. Zion lifted his hand and went through the list of forms. I am not going to even give them the grace of best form. They can have the worst. Thanks, Kara, Zai said. Kara just nodded. She was more than happy to annoy Zion. You could even say that she would enjoy doing it just to spite him. Kara was called by Zai to wake Zion up. He knew how cranky Zion would be if he was woken in the middle. He was like a toddler, without enough food and patience, No one could deal with it. But he had the perfect targets who would be Zion's outlet. The Olympians. Why go through this trouble? I could have woken him up, Barda asked. She was confused.
Zai took a step to the side. You will understand soon, Barda.
Diana, you could leave with Zion. I will have a conversation with Trevor. Diana turned to Trevor and he confirmed that it would be fine. He needed to talk with the top guy too. Do you want me to go with them? Barda questioned. I don't think it will be God to meet the gods alone, especially in their home ground. Barda's concerns were non-unfounded. She had seen many backstabbing in the days she worked for Darkseid. For those with insurmountable arrogance, they sure are short-fused, killing those that oppose them and all other thing involved. You can if you wanted to. Zai didn't care for the Olympians. They can die 1,000 worse deaths for all he cared. But just be cautious to not get caught in their conflict. Barda agreed to go. God help me. Zion arrived where Zai was standing before.
Nyan,
Diana asked as she looked down at the creature. The round yellow, fat, blob-like creature wearing a black underwear with golden strips. His feet like elephant with 3 toes, and bear-like hands with 3 claws. The dwarf of a creature that was like it was made by an annoyed god looked at them with annoyed eyes. You are going like this? Kara asked, unflinched. She was gaining resistance to Zion's shenanigans. The worst wobbled forward. This is all you are getting today. Let's get this over with. Zai, take us to Paradise Island. Zai sent a message and the glitcher tore space and placed them at the shores of Thymesera. Diana looked around, surprised that they arrived straight. The magic wielded by Nyan was formidable. It was able to see through mystical barrier formed the island. Worst, Barda, Diana and Kara stood watching the live forest, thick with nature's glory. Diana, show the way, the Worst spoke. They all followed Diana, with Worst wobbling behind them. He was slow and lazy, causing other to slow down. Zion was also annoyed that he was slow, but he would rather endure this than come in a presentable form for the Olympians. They don't even deserve the disrespect of wrath. Kara, who finally had enough, grabbed Zion and began to drag him as she walked. Zion didn't mind, he was indestructible and couldn't care less. I would like to have an image of this. Maybe soon. Worst left a trail as Kara dragged him through the forest into the Amazon's home. The Greek-styled stone huts and paved roads, trees growing all around with all women armed. The Amazons greeted Diana, showing no aggression towards the visitor. They just looked weirdly at the yellow creature that was being dragged around. They knew that Diana went on a quest and deduced that the yellow creature was the hunt. Amazons didn't comment much about the creature but congratulated Diana on completing her quest. Diana, Kara, Barda, the trio of women with Worst, arrived to meet Hippolyta. Hippolyta was confused and joyful that her daughter had returned safe. Diana, have your quest been completed? She asked. Kara lifted Worst with ease and showed him to Hippolyta. The Amazonian queen was taken aback seeing such creature. She didn't know why the Olympians wanted him, but there should be a reason. Hi, Worst voiced. He had no interest, not even in the island filled with women. He was too annoyed to think. Mother, we will meet the gods at the altar, Diana spoke. Okay, Hippolyta agreed. The trio then dragged Worst to the altar, which was a few-minute walk. Worst just let himself drag around as he closed his eyes to sleep. He need a nap. But exactly when he stepped into the dream realm, Kara threw him on the altar. I have returned, the gods of Olympus. And I have brought Nyan. Diana knelt. Kara and Barda just stood straight. Worst just laid on the floor like a dead rag doll. The 12 statues surrounding the altar opened their eyes. Their divine gaze bore authority, demanding all to kneel. Barda stood still. She was the captain of the furries. She doesn't kneel no more. Kara, who was also feeling the pressure, was angered. She released her full force and strained her muscle, standing straight even as the floor cracked under the pressure. As for the Worst, he just tanked it. He was already laying down so there was no effect on him. He just shrugged off the pressure. With all the eyes opened, light flooded the altar, drowning them. The blinding light slowly dissolved, however. They were no longer in the altar. They were standing at the center of a hall, adorned with 12 pillars that seemed to extend to the heavens. And under each of these pillars was a throne adorned in gold. In these 12 magnificent thrones, 2 among them were taller. On the big throne sat a man with sturdy build and a full-on white beard. He wore a gold bandana around his head. His eyes held lightning as he gazed at the new arrivals. On his right was a woman so magnificent and beautiful. Her held pride of noble, dressed in dark green, with golden braced on her hand. On her right was a man with robust figure, wearing a armored cloth while slanting a trident by his side. Next was a woman with a mature aura, kind and stubborn. Then was a woman fully armored, with an owl sitting on her helmet, her shield propped on the throne. Then came the twins, who looked like the male and female version of each other. The male had a golden hair, glowing with light. He was blatantly showing his lean body and muscles. Next to him was his twin, wearing a hunter's outfit. She covered everything. Both of them had bows. Then came a man in full-on armor covered in dried blood. His blood-drenched spear next to him. His gaze pierced Worst as he laid disrespectfully. Then it turned to the 2 women who stood tall even under the gaze of the 12 Olympians. Next to him was a woman who was dressed with a blanket, exuding an aroma. Next to her was a man who looked normal except he had wings on his feet and a winged helmet. Then a man who was contradictory. He was muscular and was a bear man. Finally a man who smelled like wine and beer. I greet the gods of Olympus. It is my honor to be in your presence, Diana spoke while still kneeling. Get up, child, Hera beckoned. She had a motherly tone as she spoke to Diana. Yet I couldn't say that to your acquaintances. Hera stared at Barda and Kara. Barda turned her gaze to Worst, who was not giving a shit as he slept. They collectively decided to ignore worst. I don't kneel no more, Barda said with pride. Kara didn't even bother replying. She was just looking around. She had read about the Greek gods and she didn't like them a bit. Not one bit. She just wanted to shove Zeus' rod into his mouth and choke him with it. So, she decided to not respond. Forgive me. Why did you ask me? Worst cut Diana as he turned and laid on the side, scratching his butt. The pride of some were being scratched but they decided to keep calm. They waited and seethed in silence. But Worst couldn't care less about the pride of idiots. Nyan. Hand over the spear of destiny. Such power should not be wielded by a mortal, Hermes spoke. His tone implied that he was helping him. Worst lifted a brow. Really? Then why didn't you get it before?
It was laying on a bunker all these years. There was no need to, it was safe in the bunker, unbothered, Hermes elaborated.
But now you possess the weapon. It is now wielded and it is dangerous. Worst hummed long, annoying them. So you don't want the spear because a prophecy said it would be your doom? Hermes' gaze sharpened. So, you just want the spear? Worst asked, conjuring the spear in its shrunken form. But the Olympians were shocked to see the spear. Well, except Zeus. The spear of destiny now had an additional power. The full power of the electromagnetic spectrum. To wield the light of life and death and all known emotions.
Worst played with the spear. But why should I give it to you?
Mortal creature, do not cross your limits. A voice thundered with lightning.
Surrender the spear and you may leave with your life. Nah, Worst spoke, still laying on the ground.
I am not going to give more power to an insecure little brat with no self-control. Go drink some milk and grow up. Veins popped on Zeus' head. Other Olympians looked grim. While Hermes and Dionysus was trying to not laugh. Hera was appreciative that Nyan said it to Zeus' face. And all of you, don't act like you are better. Hera, jealous little shit, who can't even control her husband. I would call him a dog, but it would be an insult to dogs. On your self-centered way of control, you can only bite on those that your husband couldn't control his dick. You suck as a mother. It was good that you threw one, since he is the only one who is remotely better in all of you. The ones you grew became a prostitute and an incel. Good grooming of children. Hera was beyond furious. Poseidon. No wonder you are the brother of Zeus. He follows your steps. You rapist bastard. No wonder people want to put crap on Ocean. He then turned to Athena. Oh, the women of wisdom. Just not with enough brain to use it. Really the best thing to do your rapt worshipper is to turn her into a monster. You dumb little shit. Even a first grader knows better. You are just a coward who couldn't stand against your uncle. Apollo that stalker. Really nice of you to cause a woman to literally change her anatomy to escape from you. And your sister who thinks she is above all. Both of you are really the offspring of Zeus. Nice job. Hermes, I will let you off because you are human and that's an insult. Hephaestus, I will also let you off the hook since I need you to forge me something. So, in total suckballs idiots. You are not getting my spear and trying to regain control on Earth. I am its king. Ah, cherry on the top. Diana is Zeus' kid. Worst literally angered all of them whole lying down on the ground. The Olympians looked red with rag, a pressure beyond comprehension blazing over the hall. Even Barda and Kara struggled to stand. Diana was have a hard time breathing, mostly due to learning she was Zeus' daughter. Chapter 73. Ending rules. The enraged Olympians summoned their weapons, ready to smite the transgressor. They would not take such disrespect, especially to their faces. Well, not all of them showed fury towards Worst, just the idiots. Hermes, Hephaestus and Dionysus were only responding due Zeus' anger and Hera was angry at Zeus. But due to her fear of Zeus and vows, she could not go against him. Wait, Worst shouted. Let me get up first. Worst's words cut through the tension as he used the spear to get up. His blobby body jiggled as he struggled to get back on his feet. After a painfully long moment, he finally stood still and faced forward. Okay, go. The Olympians, who had enough of his antics, threw their attack at him. The others couldn't even react as the attacks reached Worst in an instant. Zeus' thunder, Apollo's arrow, Ares' spear, etc., all converged into a reality-destroying attack. Boom. Kara, Barda and Diana were thrown off their feet due to the shockwave. However, they were unharmed. They felt their ears ring while their skin felt burned. Barda quickly recovered from the shock as she summoned her mace. Diana was the second to, and Kara got to her knees as she looked to where Worst was. Worst was standing tall, unharmed by the attacks. Not even the floor was cracked nor charred. They then moved their eyes to Olympians. Their eyes widened like the rest of the Olympians. Zeus, the king of Olympus, was dying, impaled by the spear to his throne. They saw as the mighty titan struggled to pull the spear from his chest as it drained him of his divinity. Tendrils, sharp like the void and bright like the light, dug into his skin and the ground. Zeus was helpless as he used the remaining lightning to fight, but to no avail. At the end he turned into a husk, drained of power and life. Worst willed the spear back. The spear ripped off Zeus' core, scattering the body to dust. And Zion wished he could do just that and be done with. He turned his eyes to the so-called gods. His contempt was visible at his gaze. The 12 of them sat as if they were mighty. Arrogance had blinding their eyes. Nyan. Hand over the spear of destiny. Such power should not be wielded by a mortal, Hermes spoke. His tone implied that he was helping him.
So, you called him for the spear?
Kara asked. Why? Hermes, who was asking Worst, turned to Kara. That spear is a powerful weapon born of blood. It corrupts those who wields it. Hermes elaborated. Now that it has resurfaced, we have taken the duty to seal it away. Kara tilted her head.
Then why didn't you help when Darkseid invaded?
Isn't he like you?
Hermes sighed, a very saddened sigh. We couldn't. We have taken oaths to not involve ourselves with mortals anymore. Moreover, those who you call heroes would have stopped him anyway. Kara wasn't buying that bull. Barda didn't even speak. She looked to her employer who was sleeping on the ground. Since he was not responding, she stayed silent but ready. She knew how things like this went. It would end with one side's death. At the same time, she understood why they wanted the spear. A spear so powerful that it gave immortal strength to fight Darkseid. It was not be a simple artifact. So, Nyan, will you hand over the spear peacefully? Hermes asked, revealing his intentions since none of them seemed to believe him. Nah, but you can have this, Worst voiced, confusing the Olympians. And before they could react, including but not limited to Zeus, multiple spears impaled them all. The spears were a replica of the Spear of Destiny made with black light of death. From the spear, tendrils of void dug into the Olympians, draining of their life. Within moment, the struggling gods turned silent. Dead. Yet, Zion could only wish that he could do that too. He couldn't kill all of them. He needed Hephaestus alive so he could make weapons for him. Of course, he could do it himself. He could probably do it better than Hephaestus. He just didn't want the chore. People cut to the chase. I would like to return to my sweet sleep. I am getting annoyed. Why do you need my spear? Buzzhead. Zion asked with no hint of respect. Show respect before the you gods, boy. Hera released her divine presence. I only got one god and he sure aren't like you. And chill out. Don't take your marital anger on me, Hera. Am I to blame if your husband is a cheating whore and you have bound yourself to him due to selfishness? Zion said it. I am not going to give you the weapon with enough power to end the universe and then some. I am strong enough to end you all in existence. Life and death, so show some respect. Fool, Ares shouted. Zion didn't move and a black spear impaled his body like a stake and drained him of life and divinity. Yeah. So, how we doing this? Zion asked as the gods rose in fury. Fight it is. Zion flicked, impaling them all with a massive spear turning them to kebab. But he couldn't do that too. Darn, it's like all my thoughts are fighting for my last brain cell. It's very chaotic. Worst rubbed his head throbbing with headache. He could dispel the headache with the spears. You know, with all reality warping power. But it would be demeaning and he liked that he didn't need to control the rage. The unbridled fury, unchained by sleeplessness combined with infinite annoyance at the Olympians. Okay, why my spear? To gain back the power or you fear death? Zion cut to the chase. I know that I can take out the whole of Olympus with nothing but a thought. I could literally wipe you all with a thought. I could even rewrite your history. Change all form of life. I am basically above you. So shut your tarp. You work for me now. Yes, Ledge, the Olympians Neltal, are you listening? A voice boomed Zion out of his daze. Zion looked around. The 12 still looked arrogant. God help me deal with these idiots. My brain is toast and I am really not in the mood of dealing with these idiots. Zion took a deep breath. He need to ground himself in reality for now. Okay. Worst rolled to the side before he stood up. It took him a painful moment to stand up. This is what you want, right? He asked as he summoned the spear. The eyes of the Olympians focused, a surprised shock visible in them. The Spear of Destiny they were expecting now had another cosmic force embedded in it. They were getting excited about having such weapon, each of them thinking about how they could rule with such weapon. Worst lifted the spear above his head, and spoke the words. With this treasure I summon. The Olympians were confounded, yet Zeus roared. Stop him. The others didn't know what was happening, but they followed. They raised their weapons to strike Worst down. Barda summoned her mace. Kara braced. Worst slammed the spear on the mount, shaking the whole of Olympus. A shock wave pushing back the Olympians and dispelling their attacks. Graveyard of gods. Black void spread like tidal wave, veins weaving into a massive door with no decor. Death was its presence. Death of immortals and God, ones forgotten and slayed. This was their graveyard. The doors creaked open with an eerie creak. Boom whoosh asterisk. A wind filled with death blew from the other side. The void wind of non-existence blew into the mount created with divinity, the home of Olympians. The wind killed all that it touched, drained the place of life. The Olympians saw their death in the door, its void tendrils reaching them. Some panicked and ran, Wholesome tried to strike it down. Zeus was in the later category, raising his hand as lightning gathered. This was divine lightning, not energized electron conduction but more reality warping. The lightning embodied with destruction as it hurled towards Worst. Worst didn't move, he willed. Chains of black rose from the ground, smashing away the attacked and reached to bind the escaping gods. The wind brushed their face, draining life away with a simple breeze. You dare! Zeus bellowed, his voice like thunder. His form expanded, his size grew and he shed his human facade. A titan, made of lightning, blinding to the eyes. A massive fist was thrown, full of power. Worst couldn't move, the fist filled the whole sky in lightning. Zeus was trying to end it all with a single punch. But Zion had other plans. The power of the spear was reaching the very core of Olympus. He was here for something else, something that gave these idiots power. He used the full force of the Spear of Destiny, breaking the barriers of reality, death reaching every god in the pantheon. He couldn't risk one of them escaping. He saw one, Thanatos, god of death, fighting his death, fighting true death. The Mount Olympus was crumbling, Gaia was awakening. The Olympians' attack, all forces converged into a powerful explosion. Worst could care less. He twisted the spear, finishing his work. A rumbled, a force unknown,
shook the whole mount as the gates of death closed. Worst pulled the spear from the ground. He encased himself and others in a bubble of cosmic force, stronger than the one before, warping into a different plane as he sealed the whole of Olympus to keep the Olympians from escaping. Pew pew. An explosion so strong that it dwarfed the thousand suns going supernova. The first shockwave itself turned the mount to dust. The second ripped the bodies of the Olympians to shreds. The thirds erased their divinity and form, leaving everything white. The spear of gods, the mount of Olympus and Olympians were no more. What was left was a white space, but it was not done yet. Asterisco zeta 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 asterisco. The explosion shrunk back, drowning the whole place in silence, creating a singular orb of energy. The orb floated in the middle of the white void. Worst floated towards it. What have you done? Diana asked in pure terror. The home of her gods gone. She had not expected it. She could never expect it. They had all gone in an instant and she could do nothing. Your gods are dead, Worst muttered as he reached for the ball of energy. This ball of energy was the representation of the Greek pantheon, the faith of believers and divinity from the source. He had erased them all from reality, leaving them as their conceptual ideas. In short, he had returned them to how they were before birth, nothing but cluster of ideas. But how? They are immortals, Barda questioned. She wanted to know how to slay a god. Worst showed the ball of energy. Return them to their original form, the first thought, an idea. Of course they are still alive. Given enough time, they will be born again. But Worst transformed. His body grew tall, about 8 feet. His skin turned bronze contrasting against the golden runes covering his skin. His eyes deep black as was his hair. His face looked otherworldly, his jaws sharp. His muscles looked like they were sculpted by the best sculptor. In other words, he looked perfect. To kill an idea is to change it to create a new, he continued, his voice holding authority. The idea that gave birth to them, the thought that gave them life. It's easy to change it. He moved the spear, however, instead of black, the spear glowed white. The force that connected all sentience. A force unequaled. He reached the minds of all living, searching for the ideas of Olympus and its gods. He reached the depth of consciousness, the collective sea of mind. He found the deep-rooted ideas of Olympians. Even if they had lost followers in the modern times, the thought of their idea was still spread. Their mythos, even though hated, still known by others. This simple knowledge was the foundation. He changed the foundation. He rewrote history, knowledge and ideas. He recreated the entire mythos of Olympians. He left the parts he liked and changed that he didn't. He was now creating a universe-level version of Fanfiction of Olympians. One that's true. He turned Zeus into a loving husband and Hera in a graceful mother. They were not married. He also added them some extra memories. Poseidon became the protector of all life on sea and looked after Atlanteans. Hephaestus was loved by Hera and married his good wife. Aphrodite became a child, a love too pure. Ares was still angry, but a good big brother. Athena was a teacher, more gods and much more. Titans were still in hell, as all stories need villains and such. But they were going through their redemption arc. He didn't change much of Hades. Let the guy chill at Underworld with his wife who would never cheat on him. Basically, he rewrote their existence, and of course this would lead to some problems, such as the retaliations of the other pantheons in the fear of their death. But they can try. He ended one or two more was not a problem, but annoyance. After confirming that the story was firm and the ideas lacked no plot hole, he released the ball of divinity. The energy would give birth to a new Olympus in due time. It might take a few centuries or so, but they will be back. As a better version. Okay, work done, Zion stated as moved them back to Thymesera. Diana looked to be in daze as she turned to Zion. Thank you for helping with the corruption. If you had not found, the god might have gone frenzy. No need, I will be taking my leave then, Zion stated. May the gods be with you, Diana spoke. Neat. Zion took Barda and Kara with him. They arrived back at the Colosseum, standing amidst the red sand. Zion began to walk forward in a hurry. He need to catch the rest of his sleep. Later then, Zion waved at them. Kara, who was silent since, spoke. What did you do? What? Zion asked back without stopping. You didn't heal any corruption, Kara stated, causing Zion to stop. You killed their gods, her eyes pierced him. What do you mean, Kara? Did we not go help the Olympians deal with the corruption of their divinity? After finding about the source, they all died to be reborn, back to their true self. Barda spoke what she remembered. Zion stared at Kara intently before a look of realization flashed across his face. Kara's memories were not altered. She was not of this universe. He was only rewriting those of this universe. She had escaped the alteration. I will explain later, he glitched away from the responsibility. Chapter 74. 74. New power. Kara watched as Zion run away. Even though she could have caught him and interrogated for answers, she decided to not follow. She didn't want to be involved in Zion's shenanigans. Knowing would only cause her more headache. She then turned to Barda, who she felt was similar to her. Someone who had gone through the darkest times and endured. If you ever visit Earth, you can give me a call to show you around, Kara suggested. I will, Barda answered, forgetting the weird question Kara had asked. I would appreciate it. Meet you later, Barda, Kara said as she looked to Zai. He understood the gesture and teleport Kara back to where she was. He then turned to Barda, extending his hand and asked for the glitcher. It was a model made in hurry to get Barda in and out of Apocalypse without leaving a trace. But he had already improved it. Receiving the glitcher, Zai replaced the item with a bracelet. It was a thick dark blue bracelet, with neon blue runes engraved on them. The bracelet looked to be something from a tribal tradition while also appealing to the modern norm. It would not out of place if she were to wear any outfit. I have also added some new cloths to your wardrobe. I don't want you attracting much attention, Zai added. Thank you, Zai, Bada thanked. It was at the moment when a wave of energy washed over them. Zai scanned the whole city the moment his sensors picked up the energy release. He immediately scanned the whole planet and the space. He confirmed that they were not under attack and changed the directive. He traced back to the origin of the wave. He found it to be at Zion's lounge. All of this took 0.05 s. He saw Zion standing with a spear of destiny at his hand. The power overflowing from the spear shuddered the space around him, bending and rippling as they're strained under the pressure. Zai didn't know why Zion was reacting like that as he could sense no one else. But without doubting Zion, he switched his sensors and used the mother box in Zion's room. The sensors he used was still not the best. It couldn't see the unseen, more psionic and magical. However, the mother box could. When he switched his view, he saw it. Those that had invaded. He saw people, with different cultural dresses and ornaments adorning their body. They all looked very different from each other, but one thing was common, their divinity. They were all gods from different pantheons. He couldn't tell who they were exactly, but from deduction he could narrow the subjects. Since you have infringed on my privacy, do not complain if I use my right. Zion was absolutely serious as he said so. He had returned to his lounge thinking he could return to his peaceful sleep. His interrupted sleep had caused him to act irrationally for most part, including the reinstallation of the Greek pantheon. He had missed the opportunity to get himself some slaw workers. Hephaestus would have helped in creating some artifacts that were beyond ordinary. But his plan didn't go as planned. His room was filled with intruders who looked like he owed them something. Like he owed these self-righteous butts. He immediately recognized who they were and decided to exercise his right. He was going to end them all. However, despite Zion's pure display of anger and power, they remained calm. They acted as they could deal with his attack. They had already prepared to fight to death if their cause went awry, but also with the belief of Zion's behavior. As a king, Nyan couldn't be a hot-headed idiot who would kill those that came at peace. But they had clearly underestimated annoyance of a man with lack of sleep, especially of the one who was called to work as the first thing. Zion was really planning on ending them, then and there. It was not a display of power to exert dominance. But to their rescue, Zai arrived at the scene. He turned to the intruders with a calm expression. His eyes turned to Zion and gave him a cup of coffee, one that was strong enough to keep him awake for 3 days. Zion looked at the coffee before looking at the idiot and drank the coffee grumpily. Zai also added some cookies. Zion took the cup and ate the cookies silently for 5 minutes undisturbed. No one wanted to disturb him. While Zion calmed down, Zai moved the things in the lounge and created new long couch for the intruders to sit on, and added them beverage from their country. He was setting this up to be a meeting, with Zion at the head of the table. Zion finished the cookies and breathed a hot breath. He was letting his annoyance and sleepiness out. His head cleared as the coffee took effect in his system. He was able to think clearly while putting his anger to the back. He then lowered his head and looked to the others that were present at the table. The first one to his right was a woman who was wearing the white kimono adorned with golden thread forming a golden sun on her back. She was also wearing a hood that covered her face, leaving only her delicate lips visible and flowing black hair visible. Zion didn't need anyone to state who she was. Then to his left was an one-eyed old man, wearing something like a suit. It was mostly armored with ornaments of crows on both of his shoulder. He could see the bloody scars of battle and an aura of a scholar. Then was a man with dark skin, wearing a remodeled Egyptian pharaoh's garments. His eyes looked radiant and powerful, wearing golden ornaments that glowed brighter even in the crystal city. His eyes were focused on him. Next was a man with 3 eyes and a snake scarf. He dressed like some monk, a bead necklaces way larger around his neck. He could feel the power of destruction flowing from the man, like a ferocious wind seal behind a calm stature. To the next was a man with too much hair. His node was pressed and a golden crown around his head. He was wearing an armor that looked like a suit. Zion looked gazes with the monkey, a subtle exchange of nature. Then was a man who was similar to Zeus, but his face was not that ugly. Then to the giant in the room. He was visibly bigger than everyone here, even though everyone else was bigger than Zion. He sat silently as if he was ready to throw some hands any time. Zion's eyes glazed over everyone else. He didn't need to give them much attention. He also figured why they were her for the most part. Even if they have not paid serious attention to him, his power was undeniably reached them. They hadn't moved like the Olympians, instead opted to watch from the back. Well, they now learned that a whole pantheon was gone. They didn't really know what really happened, but they moved when they could not feel the power of the Olympians. They thought them to be dead. They were here to protect themselves, even when the best of the Olympians were slayed. They came for a parley. What can they do when one of the pantheons, the greatest of them and kindest of them, were slayed? For reasons they knew not. Who is going to speak? Zion asked bluntly. The so-called gods didn't react much to his words. They were the strongest in their respective pantheon. Even if a fight broke out, they had confidence that they could survive. Should you not reveal your true form? A voice mature and soothing, asked. Zion turned to Amaterasu. So, will you be their spokesperson? Amaterasu turned to the others. Seeing that no one objected, she turned to Zion. It seems so. Okay, Zion sighed as his height increased and golden runes appeared around his body. His dress turned in a tight combat suit, clearly more modern than the others. The pressure he exuded matched there, even the oldest of them. Zion's form was also tall and strong.
He couldn't remain a human when speaking to them. If they think that his other form was his disguise, he should let them think that. Zion's new OD form didn't have its divinity from the source. He was not exactly connected to it as he shift form constantly. "Why are you here?" Zion asked. "You know," Amaterasu pointed. "I do." "So, all of you didn't arrive at the right time to halt my sleep and invoke my murderous rage, prompting me to go on a killing spear and end all of you. Seemed like a good guess," Zion muttered. "Well, we were here to question you on the disappearance of a pantheon." Amaterasu spoke without a reaction to Zion's words. "If you mean the Olympians, I just put them on reset, no dead yet," Zion revealed. "I hope you won't be trying anything with their recreation." The god stayed silent, contemplating his words. How can one reset the whole pantheons and why? This had never happened before. The so-called gods have never gone through rebirth, even when their followers forgot them. They just died. "Can I know the reason?" Amaterasu asked. If she found the reason, maybe they could prevent it from repeating. "They were infected by the great darkness," Zion spoke but apologized in his mind. If he pointed the blame to a primordial being who existed even before these idiots, who doesn't care much for good or evil, but always represented as the evil, he didn't think anyone would blame him. He also apologized in case he was targeted. But he also needed to heal the darkness of an idiot's influence. Now that he remembered it, he was getting annoyed at how much work he had to do. "Wait, since I am going to form a link anyway, should I get my divinity from him? That would be cool with all the shadow magic I can do." Zion grinned as he realized all the things he can pull. If he gained power from the infinite darkness itself, who is a neutral force, he could basically be undefeated. At that point, he didn't need to prepare the heroes of this earth to fight the cosmic war. But he also realized something. "Wait, aren't I already strong enough? Can't I just teleport there and beat them? Why am I going around in circles to advance this Earth's technology and strengthen the heroes? Why am I making a perfect world?" Zion had a quantum realization. He was already too strong. Well, maybe not as much as DC's plot armor, but he could fight a war by himself. "What am I doing then?" Zion asked himself. The so-called gods stayed silent as they watched Zion's expression kept changing in deep contemplation. It seemed as if he was going through some enlightenment, and they didn't want to disturb the guy who helped stop a catastrophe. They stayed silent because they understood the severity of the situation. Being influenced by the great darkness would have caused the Olympians to go mad, and they might have been also inflicted by it. It was good that it ended. Zion lifted his head. His eyes shone with new light. Zion turned to the so-called gods. "I hope you all know how dangerous the situation was. It had to be done." "We do," they nodded in agreement. "Since you understand, I hope you all a good ride back." Zion asked them to leave politely. "Can we at least know of your pantheon?" Amaterasu asked, trying to find Zion's background. Normally they would not allow a new god to rule over their home ground, but since Zion was not influencing them as a god but a mortal moreover, healing the darkness's infection, he had helped them, even if it had benefited him the most. "I am the righteous hand of God." Chapter 75. 75. Contemplation. Kara was suddenly teleported back home, finding herself in the familiar open field. She had been lounging in her room when Zai urgently contacted her. Responding quickly to the emergency, she was then teleported to wake up that idiot. She couldn't fathom why Zai would ask for her help instead of handling it himself. Shaking off the puzzling thoughts, Kara made her way back toward the house. Click. The door clicked open, breaking the serene atmosphere of the warm home. "Kara," a voice greeted her as she stepped inside. Looking up, she met the gaze of her cousin. Clark was seated on the couch, a white envelope in his hand. Kara approached, her eyes attempting to scan the contents, but the envelope's cover was impenetrable to her vision. She turned her questioning gaze to Clark. "I came to talk about this and something else with Mom," Clark explained. He had come to seek Martha's counsel about the two things Zion had given him. His mind had been a whirlwind of confusion in recent days. Unable to decide on his own, he visited Martha for her motherly wisdom. She hadn't given him a definitive answer but had instead provided clarity and direction. "What's in the envelope?" Kara asked as she took a seat beside him. Clark handed the envelope to Kara. He had already read the letter multiple times. She took the letter and began to read. "Hello there. It's Nyan, the King of Earth, Emperor of Soul, but that's not the point. I'm reaching out to you about an initiative called the Justice League. I'm assembling a team of extraordinary individuals, and you're at the top of the list. Your commitment to justice and the hope you bring to the world are exactly what we need. As you've seen, the threats we face and will face are too vast for any single hero to handle alone. By joining forces, we can make a greater impact and protect more lives. You've already achieved so much as Superman, and I believe you can do even more as part of this league. So what do you say? If you're interested, keep this letter with you. I will call. Looking forward to the day. Yours truly, Nyan." Below the letter was the time and date when Nyan would call, set for 2 days later. Kara looked up, understanding the gravity of the responsibility that Clark was contemplating. She could empathize with him. Clark had always been a lone warrior, bearing the burden of protecting countless lives by himself. The prospect of joining a team introduced new dynamics. As a solo hero, he didn't have to worry about others, heroes, during fights, taking the brunt of deadly attacks while safeguarding civilians. But working as part of a team was uncharted territory, fraught with its own challenges. The need for trust, the potential for conflicting ideals and methods among teammates. Yet, within this uncertainty, there was a glimmer of hope. Clark could see a future where he could help more people, extending his fight beyond Metropolis to the entire world. However,
His skepticism towards Zion persisted. Despite the positive changes, Clark struggled with Zion's methods, even if they ultimately succeeded. What are you planning to do? Kara asked, handing the letter back to Clark. I don't know. The idea of being part of a team and helping more people is appealing. But I'm not sure I can trust Zion, not after everything that's happened. Kara nodded, sharing a complicated relationship with Zion herself. She still harbored a desire to punch Zion occasionally, but she had come to understand him, even if a little. I think you should at least hear him out, Kara suggested. Clark looked at her, puzzled. He knew Kara's disdain for Zion was stronger than anyone else's. Sensing his confusion, Kara elaborated. I still don't like the guy, but his actions speak for themselves. He's making changes on a scale you haven't achieved in years of hero work. Yes, his methods are questionable, but they're effective. So, I think you should at least listen. Clark sighed, acknowledging her reasoning. He folded the letter and tucked it into his jacket pocket. He knew that whatever decision he made could shape not only his future but also the future of countless lives around the globe. Yellow. It's Nyan, King of Earth, Emperor of Soul. I'm reaching out about the Justice League initiative. I'm putting together a team of exceptional individuals, and you're invited. You've shown incredible commitment to justice and intellectual prowess. As you've seen, the threats we face and will face are too immense for any single hero to tackle alone. By uniting, we can make a significant impact and protect more people. You've done so much as Batman, and I believe you can contribute even more as part of this league. Keep this letter with you. I will call. Looking forward to the day. Yours truly, Nyan. In the dimly lit Batcave, Batman stared at the letter. The soft glow from the Batcomputer illuminated the words as he read them with a simmering anger. Without his iconic cowl, his bare torso bore no scars of countless battles. In his other hand, he held a glowing cube. His recent confrontation with the Sentinel had ended disastrously. The relentless machine had neutralized his arsenal within moments, completing its mission with precision. It had eliminated Catwoman, Selina Kyle, a professional thief and a well-known criminal, before his eyes. He had been powerless to stop it as she looked at him with fear. Now, all that remained of her was the cube. He couldn't comprehend why the Sentinel had chosen to turn her into a cube rather than vaporizing her with its disintegration ray. He surmised that there must be a way to restore her. Master Bruce, Alfred's voice cut through his brooding thoughts. Would you like some water? No, thank you, Batman replied, refocusing on the analytics data. I think you should, Alfred insisted, pouring water into a glass, the sound resonating in the quiet cave. Batman turned, eyebrow raised. What is it, Alfred? Unperturbed, Alfred continued. I understand your anger, Master Bruce, but you must realize that it was inevitable. Zion's move to clean up Gotham required the elimination of all criminals. Seeing that Bruce wasn't convinced, Alfred dropped the pretense. Selina is just sealed, sir. Zion informed me in case you, well, started plotting. He mentioned he would be annoyed to deal with your multi-layered plans. Did he tell you why and how? Batman asked, his gaze sharp. Alfred pushed the glass of water towards him. He explained that leaving any high-profile criminal free, especially those known in the underworld, would undermine his authority. This was his way of giving Madame Selina a way out while maintaining his image. And the water is for you. Water. Batman echoed, glancing at the glass. Hello, Flash. I know you're probably skeptical and wary of this letter. How do I know your secret identity? How did this letter magically appear in your home? Don't worry. This isn't a threat. It's an invitation. I'm reaching out about the Justice League initiative. I'm assembling a team of extraordinary individuals. Your incredible speed, quick thinking, and unwavering sense of justice are exactly what we need. As the Flash, you've not only protected Central City but have become a symbol of hope and resilience. Your ability to be everywhere at once and your commitment to using your powers for good are invaluable qualities that would greatly benefit the Justice League. As you've seen, the threats we face and will face are too great for any single hero to handle alone. By working together, we can make a greater impact and protect more people. So what do you say? If you're interested, keep this letter with you. I will contact you soon. Looking forward to the day. Yours truly, Nyan. Barry read the letter at super speed, skimming it several times to ensure he hadn't misread it. He couldn't believe that someone knew his secret identity and had magically delivered this letter to his home. The name Nyan stuck out. The only Nyan he knew was the king. It felt odd calling him that. Nyan had appeared one day and taken over the planet, with governments surrendering without resistance to his overwhelming power. Barry hadn't intervened because the other heroes, including Superman, had chosen not to oppose him. Observing the positive changes in the world, Barry conceded that staying out of the conflict had been the right choice. Nyan was effecting transformations, albeit mostly in Gotham. But now, this powerful figure was extending an invitation to him, a hero from Central City. Moreover, he knew Barry's secret identity. Although the letter claimed it wasn't a threat, the potential risk to his security made Barry hesitant. Breathing deeply, Barry considered the opportunity. If the letter's promise was true, he could gain allies, something he had longed for. Being able to share his secrets and burdens with fellow heroes brought a sense of relief. However, doubts lingered. Could they work effectively as a team? Would they understand his approach to problem-solving and his relentless optimism? Barry knew that being the Flash was more than just moving fast. It was about thinking and acting swiftly. He wondered if the others could keep up with his pace. Calming his racing thoughts, Barry felt a mix of apprehension and excitement at the prospect of new experiences. Your Majesty,
John bowed his head respectfully. Martian Manhunter held a pristine white letter, written in the elegant script of the Martian language. Unlike the invitation sent to others, this letter had a more commanding tone. It was an order from Zion, though disguised as a choice. Yet, it was an order he couldn't refuse. Do not feel burdened, King Jem reassured him, seated regally on his throne. This opportunity is not just for you but for all of Mars. With the transformations we are undergoing, we can no longer remain isolated. It is time for us to expand and explore. I understand, Your Highness, John replied, acknowledging the broader implications of Jem's words. Martian Manhunter had stayed on Mars to help with the ascension of the new king, just in case of a protest. His help had been crucial in Jem's ascension to the throne, deterring the voice of other. However, Jem's actions had also proven his worth. Despite his youth, King Jem had demonstrated remarkable maturity since ascending to the throne. Even though his appointment was controversial and opposed by many, including the former king, Zion's decision to place Jem in power had proven wise. Jem's leadership quickly became apparent through his actions. One of his first decrees was to grant the Oshans equal rights, elevating them to the status of full citizens alongside the Garans. Surprisingly, this radical change encountered minimal resistance. The shared scars of war and collective trauma had forged an unprecedented unity between the two races. Johns now understood why Zion had instigated the conflict. The war had compelled the once divided Martians to unite and fight together. This newfound camaraderie was dissolving old animosities. King Jem's vision extended beyond mere social reforms. He was spearheading environmental advancements, aiming to transition his people from their subterranean existence to the surface of Mars. With Zion's transformative interventions, living on the surface was becoming viable. Under Nyan's guidance, new settlements were being established, large enough to accommodate the majority of the Martian population. These changes, though gradual, were profound. Amid these transformations, preparations for Jem's wedding to Cyrus Smith were underway, a symbol of both personal and political unity. As Mars began to stabilize and flourish under his leadership, King Jem set his sights on the cosmos. Despite their formidable powers, the Martians knew they were outnumbered by their galactic neighbors. They needed to grow and prepare for future challenges while the opportunity for peace still existed. Chapter 76. 76, Normal Day. A day later, Zion woke up from his slumber, feeling refreshed by the good long sleep. He pulled away his thick blanket and turned off the air conditioner. He had his room at low temperature while sleeping under a thick blanket. The cozy sleep of heated blanket against the cold winds. What a sleep it was. You woke up. Zion appreciation for his momentary peace was cut by present voice. Zion's mind raced as to figure out what was happening. He then quickly turned the AC back on and pulled the blanket over. He quickly returned to sleep, trying to escape his reality. He shut his eyes shut, not wanting to dealing with his life anymore. God help me. It not gentlemanly to let a woman wait. The pleasant voice spoke again. Zion grumbled at the voice, pulling at the blanket tighter. He didn't was to deal with this, especially this early morning. But the voice on his head told him that his day was already ruined. He could only continue. Zion sighed in frustration while he got back up and out of bed. He walked straight to the kitchen counter to turn on the coffee maker. The sound of trickling coffee echoed in the room as he turned to the pleasant voice. A woman, wearing an oversized hoodie made of fine silk and a baggy pants, sat on his couch. She sat there like a fine sculpture that would make any artist fall on their knees. Yet, Zion could only frown. Unlike normal mortals, he was not swayed by godly beauty. His constitution allowed for no such things. He was a solid rock among the tidal waves of influence. Or he thought so. What do you want, Amaterasu? Zion sipped the freshly brewed coffee. Amaterasu smiled like the morning sun at his words, her face half covered by the hoodie. She had stayed behind after the meeting to further establish the covenant between Zion and the Pantheons. They both would not interfere in each other's affair, and would help each other if needed. Zion made it clear he wanted to do nothing with them, and as long as they kept out of his way, he would let them be. But what intrigued Amaterasu something else. He cared not for them, nor did he fear them. It was given by the power he held. His perfect form held powers similar to their strongest, yet they felt no divinity from him but faith. It was as if his power came from believing in something else. It was such a bizarre concept that others didn't even want to address it. Zion in his human was still radiating a glow of faith, even if he did not want to. Maybe he doesn't even know it. He doesn't. The glow was not strong, but nevertheless it was still there. Amaterasu wanted to find what that was, who was giving this power to him. Nyan, do you believe in someone? A god maybe? She inquired. Zion raised a brow as he sipped the coffee. Why? Just curious, she replied. I do. Zion spoke in a tone that implied he would not be answering anything more. Amaterasu could only keep silent. Seemed like he had caught on to her. He didn't. Zion placed the cup on back down and looked at Amaterasu. His brain was being hardwired. He could see Amaterasu's soft lips and perfectly carved chin. From all he could see, he was sure that she would be an unmatched beauty. Even her voice was like a siren singing. His brain was trying to fight his body. He was a male without a female contact of years on end. He was also a kid from a town. His interactions with opposite sex were very conserved. So, having a beautiful lady in his room alone was making his imagination run a bit wild. Even though he kept fighting each and every thought that popped up. He was getting a headache. Zai, Zion called. Zai's voice came from the coffee machine. Is it ready? Zion asked. What is ready? The sunstone, Zion asked. Yeah, they are ready. Okay,
Zion replied, and Zai left the machine.
Zion turned to Amaterasu and gave a look that said, "Sit still."
Before he walked into the washroom, he did his morning routine and freshened up. He came out wearing fresh new cloths, a big white t-shirt that hid his toned muscles and blue jeans that went well with the fashion. "Where are you going?" Amaterasu asked as she got up, her lips curling into a curious smile. "Work," Zion answered as he walked out the door. "I am coming with you," Amaterasu spoke in an energetic voice as she rushed to catch him. Zion gave her a side gaze but didn't stop her. With Amaterasu caught up with him, Zion took a tablet that was stuck on the wall. This was something that allowed him to view all the projects that was go on. There was one placed outside all the important rooms. Zion read the reports as he walked with Amaterasu in tow. "They criminals have been capturing Gotham. What's left is to establish ourselves," Zion muttered as he read the report on Gotham. "The Sentinels have cleaned the place off rats and dirtbags. We still need to renew the infrastructure, especially the rotten curse sealed underground," Zion sighed in frustration. "Couldn't we have just blown it up sky high and rebuild it? We could have done that in a day." "Citizens would be annoyed," Zai answered. "Who cares? I am their king, I have the right to," Zion replied in an annoyed voice. "We can't just atomize someone home and replace with another. We need favorability points." "Whatever, I will just clean it up in my next visit," Zion murmured. "Are the instruction on alterations of consensus been sent?" "Yeah, added new laws to make it better." "What about North Korea?" "Doing well." "Is communism bad?" Zion asked. "Depend on the implication." "Are the letters read?" "Yes. Atlantis." "Have no idea." "What you mean?" "Arthur is still roaming around drunken." "URG," Zion groaned. "Find him." "Done." "Star Heart. You need to go by yourself." "Armory. Need to expand mining procedure. It will be good to terraform other planets." "Begin those, and find the coordinates of the other places." "Done." "The police box. It's a delicate process." "Duration. Year or two." "What about the Martian settlements?" "Stable biomes have been established. The settlements are underway." "The Martians. They are recovering fine." "Are the heads still thinking they could take us out?" Psi asterisk they are. "Idiots." Zion couldn't feel more disappointed. "How is the mapping going on?" "Progressing smoothly." Zion continued to check on the list of things that he had been doing and planning, making sure that everything was going as planned. He also advised on improvement and redirected some of the plans in a different direction. In the 10-minute walk, Amaterasu didn't disturb him. She as a leading goddess knew how much work had to be done to keep people in reign. It was one of the hardest things to do. Zion completed more than 100 procedures and plan, leaving paperwork to Zai, who could do it in a second. They were working to improve the whole planet and welcome a new age. He would need the people to be ready, to fight and defend for themselves. If ever needed. He didn't need some incompetent citizens. Zion arrived back at the main office. The office was colorful compared to Crystal City. He had left it all white, since he didn't want people to think that this is Frankenstein's laboratory with the whole black decor. The whole palace would look like a nightmare incarnate in black. The office was colored deep blue with wavy pattern extending through the floor. The wall too shifted with many hyper-realistic wallpapers toward the fact of closed space. As for the others, all thing were one you would find in a CEO's office. Zion walked straight to the closet and pulled the long coat out of it. Even though the long coat looked weird above his casual dress, he was not going to leave without his armor. He got some work to do. "Zai!" Zion called. The wall opened and displayed a crystal that was colored metallic blue compared to its usual white. Zion had already finished analyzing the sunstone and devised a method to alter its components and structures, suiting his taste. Zion grabbed the crystal and pocketed it. He turned to leave but he nearly collided with Amaterasu. He backed away immediately. "She even smell nice like the spring breeze." "Amaterasu, I am going out," Zion said as he began to glitch. "You do you." With those words, he vanished from the place, appearing in the void of space. He could see the peck of light in the distant, even the blazing inferno in the distant. He turned to the gray celestial object and threw the crystal towards its surface at remarkable speed. The crystal flew at full speed before it dug itself into Moon's surface. The crystal began its work as it dug in and began to multiply, creating a monolith of intricate structure. Zion watched it all with calm eyes, but he asked a question. "Do you think we have a harem tag?" "Why you ask?" "We have been having too many woman trouble," Zion asked. "I don't think so. For all that gone down, we haven't even met an implicit romantic interest." "Really?" "I thought we have met plenty enough," Zion pondered. "I don't think so. All the women you meet are after your head." Zion scratched his head. "Sigh, no romance for me." "Do not worry, child. Your future is in my control." "Oh, The crystal quickly did its work as it constructed the base for a future project. This base had most of his advanced tech. It would be an impenetrable fortress. It could even tank a supernova. "So, you were here," the pleasant voice echoed in the space. Zion turned to Amaterasu, who appeared next to him. She watched the new base with curiosity, but she quickly lost it. She then turned to Zion. "Are you not going to show your guest around?" she asked in a very convincing voice. Zion wiped his face in frustration. He could say not to that smile. Let go. Chapter 77. Normal day number 2. Gotham. Zion walked through the not-so-dense street as people moved about to their work. Him in his t-shirt and tracksuit with long overcoat attracted many weird gazes, but not judging as they had seen enough weird. But the one who turned most head was the person next to him. Her elegance unhidden by the baggy yet cute dress only attracted many eyes. Her hoodie was still drawn to cover her face, but her natural beauty couldn't hidden. The way she walked as if she was on a different plane, like a lotus among the muddy swamp, untouched by its filth. Those who gazed upon her could not remove their eyes, walking in daze as they bumped into random objects. Zion had only brought her with him due to her insistence and his paranoia. He could let someone like her run around unrestrained. Not in his land. He ignored the people around him and observed the atmosphere of the street. The dark street of Gotham was brighter than any of his visits. He could see people smiling as they moved about with ease, not fearing of any muggers. Of course, they still tensed when they crossed some allies. Long-time stay in Gotham had molded these people's perception for danger. They had lived with fear while fighting for hope, with only Batman protecting them from Gotham's darkness fully swallowing them. Zion could see that darkness had lifted a bit, but they would still need time. In a distance he could see children surrounding the Sentinel that watched over this housing district. This place was home to many cogs and gears that turned the machine known as Gotham. The children, fearless unlike the adults, surrounded the Sentinels as it sat on the floor to not frighten the children. The Sentinel seemed to enjoy the children's curiosity. Zion marked the Sentinel for evaluation of psyche and left it at that. He had given his Sentinels emotions so they could differentiate between right and wrong, but with emotions came many other problems. Then his gaze turned to the walk opposite, where people were drawing graffiti artists poured their heart out. Zion had allowed for such things as long as it was not something inappropriate. He thought the city needed more color than its black Gothic structure. He could also see some carpenters working on building as they tried to repair the damages. He also adds some renovation project to Gotham. He should meet with the Gotham's mayor to talk about his peaceful resignation and reinstate a new one. Should he put Bruce to do it? The man is ruthlessly efficient in doing things. He could improve the city in day and night if I were to let him do it. He would also have more power to fight against crime. In the future Gotham would be a paradise compared to its past. So would the whole world. But he knew that darkness would always peek its head. He could use Catwoman for that. He better use the pieces he had. It's better to have someone he controlled take over the underworld than some idiot. A good mafia that dealt with the underworld while also maintaining order. Should I become the lord of the underworld? It was an increasing prospect. Like the king in the shadows. But he already have so much work already. He would only be relieved after the establishment of Justice League. With a force that could stop most threat in place, he could relax. Then he would continue his adventure of the multiverse. Something smells bad. The voice, similar to a birdsong, demanded Zion's attention. Zion turned to Amaterasu from his sightseeing. He could see her cover her nose with her hands as if she had smelt something too bad. Zion knew she was not talking about trash or sewers but a different bad smell. Zion nodded and asked, "Can you try removing it?" Amaterasu nodded at the request and gathered her divinity. The sun on the sky brightened as the cloud dispersed. The sunlight then intensified in a way that it spread warmth. Zion, standing under, felt his vitality surge and gain more energy. He then scanned the people around him and could feel their moods have shifted. The glittering sunlight died after a second and Amaterasu lowered her hand. Her expression showed that the smell had vanished. She had managed to purify that miasma from an evil entity that used Gotham as its breeding ground. "So you managed to purify the land," Zion spoke. "Well, more like suppressed it. You know where this smell is originating from?" Amaterasu questioned. From the minute she had stepped into the city, she could feel that bad odor waffling off from the ground. She tried to keep it away from her using her power, but the smell only increased over time. Zion nodded. "I do. It is from his big bad who is kinda playing behind the scenes, instigating many things with his power. It is also connected with the cursed land Gotham have built above. Too much negativity have gathered here. You are planning to intervene?" Amaterasu could tell. "Yes, I am going to," Zion replied as if her was talking. Amaterasu couldn't help but be more intrigued by Zion's behaviors. He seemed to be an easy guy on the outside, like a mirage covering the truth. Yet he cared more and worked more. "Why do you care so much?" Amaterasu asked as they resumed walking. Zion turned to her with her eyebrows raised. "I mean, you are a god. You don't need to concern yourself with the mortal. Even if the mortals were to die, we would be safe in our realms. So why bother?" Amaterasu inquired. As god, they cared not for mortals. The mortals lived under their grace, ants that hiding in the shadows of the monolith. Why would they worry when an ant die of the flood? Wouldn't they be lowering themselves if they moved at every request of the gods? "I do because this is my duty," Zion replied. "Why are we to be called God if we can't protect those who need our protection? Is it not your role to keep a crumbling balance? Who are we to think we are above all things? Even a mortal with enough power could do what God do with their divinity. We are just people with incredible power. What the point in not using it? You speak of righteousness, yet you don't seem to be a person to care about it." Amaterasu hit the nail on the head. "Well, you got to do some good to get away with a little bit of evil," Zion acknowledged. "But I am trying to make the world better." "Agreed," Amaterasu agreed. "So, want to eat something? You have any food you particularly like?" Zion questioned. "I could get us the best reservation." "I do not like the food of the mortals," Amaterasu replied. "Okay," Zion shrugged. "Let us continue over stroll." Then they moved on through the streets before arriving at the squatting giant. The many children who were using crayon to adorn it in ornament. The silver metallic surface covered with many different childish drawing. Zion approached the calm giant, watching as the children climbed and slipped down. The giant reached to catch the child and place her to the ground softly. The other fearless children still tried to climb on his shoulders to sit on. Zion could only admire the fearlessness of Gotham's children. All of them have that fear indicator bit loose. The Sentinel, looking at Zion approaching him, tried to get up. Zion gestured the giant to stay silent as he approached the children with Amaterasu in tow. Hey kid, did you parents not warn you about dangers? Zion asked. What do you want, old man? The kids turned to Zion. Really, do I look that old? Zion turned to Amaterasu. Amaterasu shrugged. She was not going to get caught on this. Sister, you are pretty. A girl about 5 looked brightly at Amaterasu. Her lower size allowed her to look at Amaterasu's face. Amaterasu, seeing the pure eyes of the girl, patted her head without a word. She normally never descend to watch the mortals since centuries gone. Seeing the child's eyes itched her. Sister, how are you so pretty? Can and be pretty like you? The children started to surround Amaterasu, shooting her with hundreds of questions at a time. Zion turned from her. With the children distracted, he can talk with Sentinel. The Sentinel, still squatting, focused its neon blue eyes at Zion. How are things going? Everything is going as predicted. So, why are you sitting here being children's attraction? Zion asked. Order states to be likable. From research it shows that children influence their children. So, I though to be likable to children. Zai put you up to it. Zion shook his head. What are we reenacting the Iron Giant? You are a highly advanced technological life form. I am meant to protect and make people feel safe. Zion nodded. You do you. Keep up the good work. Zion gave the Sentinel an encouraging pat. The Sentinel still had its purpose ingrained, to follow the inlaid program. Of course, they could override and disobey order. Zion had wrote their code to follow specific conditions. It's like human brain, knowing what is right and wrong and following their core. As long as the Sentinels don't rebel against him and fight for the wrong cause, they would be active. Zai would keep running a check on them when he got time. He should always prepared for another Sector 666 incident. Let's leave Amaterasu, Zion called. Amaterasu struggled away from the children and followed Zion. Zion walked around for a bit before finding one of the shelters. In the shelters he could see many people gathered. They were still skeptical about the whole thing, the robot, the free healthcare and all. But some thought of it as God's grace and ate the food given. Most people here were homeless and abandoned. He also saw some suspicious little dwarfs snooping around, but they were of no consequence. He checked on the list of people and how they were behaving. They shelters need to function properly to heal Gotham's back allies. It would give them hope. Zion quickly checked shelter and turned to leave. His visit was not noticed by any as they were very secretive. He was using Amaterasu to distract everyone. Zion have a mental thumbs up towards Amaterasu as he walked out the shelter. Thud. Zion staggered back. Something heavy had hit him. Zion turned to what hit him. His eyes narrowing as he watched the woman covered in cut and bruise. She was clenching something in her hand. Zion could hear the light cry that was escaping from the wrapped cloth. You okay? Zion asked immediately. Help me, they are trying to kill us. The woman nearly fell to the ground. Zion caught her and supported her into shelter. His eyes covertly scanned the street for who it could be. The Sentinels wouldn't have let this happen. They had eyes all around Gotham. She came though the sewers. I found the culprits. Zion didn't answer and handed the lady to the medic bots to take her. She still had the small baby in her hands as she was carried away. Zion could only sigh. How did this happen? Someone new had popped up. Gotham's underground is a good breeding ground for these types. I will move the Sentinels. Nah. Zion shook his head. Sent a message to Batman. I will check the sewers myself. Chapter 78. 78. Hunting. Target. Rose Von Cade. Gender. Male. Age. 32. Location. Gotham sewers. Background. Hailing from a branch family of one of the crime families of Gotham. He was nothing but a simple handyman. Seem like he is stepping up to take over the ownerless underworld. He has been gathering tales. Nothing big enough to pop in our radar. Okay, Zion spoke. Did you find anything from the woman? No, sir. The lady is too distraught to answer. Keep her under surveillance. Will do, sir. What are you going to do? Amaterasu questioned. Well, it's been long since I stretched my limbs, Zion said with a grin. I will continue my stroll alone. You are free to do what you want. Zion didn't wait for her reply and walked toward an empty street and climbed down to the sewer. He covered his nose at the smell, nearly considering turning into something that doesn't have nose. Zion just covered his nose and walked forward, returned to the opening the woman had climbed out from. He crouched down and checked the footprints she had left. Light flashed from his coat and revealed what couldn't be seen by the eyes. Tracks left by the lady led north. He could just follow them back. If you are going to be here, be useful. Will ya? Zion spoke to the dark sewers. Why did you call? Batman walked out of the shadow. He asked, having already scanned the location and tracks to where it would lead. He had already grasped the basic situation. But his question was why Zion called him. Especially after what had gone down between them. Zion was especially ready to throw hands with Batman. You know this and that, Zion said as he stood up. So, thought about joining the Justice League? It would be good if you joined. Explain, Batman asked as they began walking. The team would need someone to lead the group. Someone with enough paranoia to prepare for every situation. Moreover, I need a human among the Inhumans that I am assembling. Can't have masses shaking in fear. Zion began. Superman is all about justice, but he forgets to think things through sometimes. Flash is fast and intelligent, But again, his thirst for justice makes him jump into danger without thought. Diana is a warrior. She will not back down from his challenger. Green Lantern is narcissistic and wouldn't obey anyone's command. So are the other. All of them have the heart to fight justice, but in it, they forget about the dangers. You need me to be their leash, Batman pointed. You could be or you could be their guide, Zion returned. Of course, you will not be their de facto leader. You will have to earn it. They will challenge you all the way. Oh, I almost forgot. Zion faked an I almost forgot expression. The JL will function as a separate entity from government body, coming under no authority, even mine. So join the JL or at least just attend the meeting, Zion said as they arrived at the end of the tracks. They saw the way up, to a manhole. Zion's wrist flashed, displaying that he was directly below an estate. One of the estates that his Sentinels should have cleaned up. The woman had climbed down and escaped through this. Zion looked up. I will deal with this. So, attend the meeting, Batman, otherwise. Zion turned to the darkness. I will make Bruce Wayne the mayor. Even though Zion couldn't see anyone in the darkness and Batman seemed to have left, he knew that Batman would be listening. He was having easy time talking to Batman than Superman. He didn't need to hide his feeling and his gray moral. Superman was a bit annoying to deal with. He sees too much good in humanity. Superman saw the bright light, but Batman lived in the darkness of the shadow hidden in the light. Zion didn't expect any answer and began to climb ladder. He then slowly pushed the cover away, sliding it to the side and climbing out. He scanned the terrain for any hostiles, but the manhole was perfectly covered by the bushes. Zion checked for tracks around the manhole, before confirming that he was at the correct location. He moved near the bush before pressing the button on the collar. The collar instantly projected his helmet, covering his face while revealing that was hidden. He could see multiple heat signatures moving through the estate, guarding. Most held weapons, mostly normal rifles and pistols. But they seemed disorderly. Zion deduced that it was from the rough recruitment. He had cleaned the capable henchmen off the streets. Even if some were left, they wouldn't have joined anyone. They knew the difference between working for a head and a tail. And Sentinels made good impressions on their first day. Zion quickly scanned the layout of the estate. This estate had a big garden and a Bangalore at the center. This was a typical big boss estate, where the head of the crime family lived. But now it was the den of the detached tails. Zion smiled at the God-given opportunity. He was feel itchy since he had been using the Omnitrix less. It was like having your favorite toy and not playing with it. However, he couldn't do anything about it. Most of the alien were street level compared to what he fought. But these idiots won't worth the sweat. Who should I change into? Should I go stealth or? Zion asked himself as he hovered his hand above the Omnitrix, his fingers tracing its faceplate. A golden disc projected out, displaying the aliens. His eyes scanned the many forms he could take, unable to decide which one. It was a deep trouble. Zion finally decided on the alien he wanted to use. A golden light flashed. Hey, did you see that now? Goon 1. What? Goon 2. A light flash. I didn't see anything, are you sure? Yes. Where then? Some rats might have sneaked in. Goon 2 lifted his rifle ready to shoot. There. Goon 1 pointed with his own. The two goons looked at each other before they divided as one moved towards the bush to check if someone was present. Goon 1 took careful step towards the bush, his fingers on the trigger. His gulped as nervous sweat formed on his head, pure tension coursing through his body. After 2 steps he arrived next to the bush, moving quickly to locate the intruder. But what he saw was ice laying on the floor, reflecting the setting sky. The goon turned left and right, trying to see if someone was hiding. Confirming that no one was present, he moved to check the ice. He crouched to touch the ice to notice that the ground was fully frozen. At the revelation, his eyes narrowed as he bounced back to his feet. He turned immediately to his friend to inform him of the threat, only to see an ice sculpture of his friend, frozen as he stood guarded, not even aware of his fate. The goon stumbling back reached for the radio at his waist, only to feel the coldness of ice through his shaking hands. He looked down, his communicator cascaded in ice. He gulped, sure of his fate. He was a Gothamite, not some metropolis goon. He has seen the cruel darkness of Gotham. He had worked under different villains and seen their methods on dealing with enemies. If his guess was right, he was being targeted by Mr. Freeze. Not just him but the whole gang. Wrong, spoke a chilly voice into his soul. The goon, frozen in fear, noticed the frost forming on his skin. Yet it was too late as 2 large green eyes materialized before him. He screamed in fear, yet no sound released. His cry stuffed by the rapid formation of ice. He was eternally frozen into a sculpture depicting pure horror. The green eyes then vanished, leaving not sign of its presence except the 2 ice sculptures. This repeated as the goons around the estate were frozen into horror depicting statues. BZZZ crack asterisk. Is everything okay there? The voice spoke from the communicator. Answer, Team 3 has gone offline. A hand reached and crushed the communicator. The goons in the estate began to panic as the intruder seemed more than capable. They tired to deduce who it would be. Some saw the ice sculpture that were guarding the estate. They quickly deduced that it could be Mr. Freeze, but didn't know if it was really him. The goons went to battle mode and crowded the hallway leading to the main office. They didn't try to move the boss in case of an ambush. Clearly the intruder was aiming for the head. On the hall before the main office, the goons huddled together aimed their guns. They fingers ready to shoot down anything that moved. Isn't it a bit hot? A question, asked in a ghastly voice. The question was followed the rushing cold wind, a tidal wave of ice rushing towards them. In an instant the whole hall was frozen by ice.
From the plants to the rich painting on the wall to the light were frozen solid.
The goons' legs were only frozen to the point they were attached to the ground. Their trepidated breath condensed as they shivered at the chill. They couldn't see their opponent, nor can they move to avoid the attack. Their only way was to confront and be frozen. They were beaten too many times to not know their fate. It's cozy, the ghastly voice spoke like the Grim Reaper as the figure of a blue-cloaked ghost. Shoot! A goon screamed as he pulled the trigger. Pew 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 pew. The rain of bullets echoed inside the office, making those that stood guard feel a rise of nervousness. Their cold sweat made them aware of their cold surrounding and the condensing breath. The room was getting cold, condensation forming on the glass window.
The target Roast Von Cade rubbed his hand due to the cold. His breath condensing before him did not help his rattling soul.
This was the first time he was standing at the forefront of an attack by an unknown enemy. He was not uninformed like the other. He knew that Mr. Freeze was removed from the asylum. But this was not his methods. Mr. Freeze would have frozen the whole estate instead of acting like a ghost. Pew! The final shoot of bullet echoed in the silence that followed, increasing their anxiety to the max. The gunmen griped their weapons tight. They were shitting their pants but they would not go without a fight. They had fought Batman many times before. Quitting didn't bring them here. Click! The door handle twisted. Its lock snapped back covered in cold. The door slowly opened, cold flooding the room. The cold made them shiver, so did the sight of blue. The whole hallway and 20 or so men frozen solid. Each of them looked desperate as they stood frozen. The men gulped, their throats soaring cold. Is it too cold? Asked a voice, directly behind the target. The man startled jumped forward, crashing into the table. The goons turned and pointed their guns at the bookshelf. Fear gripped their hearts as they found none. Their cold sweats began to froze, but they were already too frightened to notice. We need to get out of here, Roast Von Cade ordered as they retreated. The two guards flanking him slowly moved towards the bookshelf on the side. Roast Von pulled 5 different books, prompting the shelf to slid open. The guards slipped into the hidden passage with Roast Von, leaving the others to stand guards.
Ah! Roast Von quickly closed the door, only for him to hear the screams of his guards at the last moment and the barrage of bullets being fired.
He couldn't help but wish for an escapable reality. He should have hidden in the back alley forever. They were not attacked, nor they feel threatened in the rest of their journey. Even the coldness was lifted off them. They arrived at the underground parking lot. The bright place had one black Mercedes, standing in the middle. They quickly rushed to the car, checking to make sure they were not tagged or bombed. Confirming that they were in the clear, they guards boarded the front seat while Roast Von took the back. The car throttled and rushed out. The trio didn't want to stay at all. The car rushed out of the estate and jumped to the road, leading straight to the heart of Gotham. Really going to Gotham? Isn't it safe to leave? Someone asked the question.
No, we have a safe house, Roast Von replied before he realized that it was not one of them who asked the question.
The guards turned to look back, one pointing his gun as Nyan sat next to Roast Von. They looked at his iconic outfit, which was his neon helmet, and gulped. If one couldn't recognize the man before them, they should be living under a rock. They looked to Roast Von for order, not knowing what to do.
Focus on the road, Nyan commanded, before turning to Roast Von.
The guards turned to Roast Von. Roast Von gestured them to continue. He then turned to Nyan. What did I do to invite the king? Roast Von asked.
Nyan placed his hand on the chin and looked to be in thought. Where should I start?
Nyan mused. Should I start from where you tried to create a new gang to rule the underworld, or sending your mistress to steal my data? Can't say I am not impressed. Sending a technopath to steal the data from the shelter was a very good idea. My system wouldn't have noticed her anomaly if my men weren't present. His system, even though capable enough to stop intrusion from Brainiac, would have overlooked the plot behind it. But what more intriguing is that a detached tale like you thinking of that idea. I have read your whole history and you have never displayed such remarkable thinking. So who is behind you? Roast Von gulped at Nyan's question. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of the water. You don't need to think hard, Nyan spoke. Just tell me the name and I will let you go. Really? Roast Von asked. Sure, Nyan answered. It was man named Vandal Savage. He approached me to use my girlfriend's power to infiltrate the shelter and gain its data. I don't know who he was. He just promised an amount that I couldn't refuse. Roast Von spilled the bean. Okay, Nyan nodded. Now get out of my city. Nyan glitched away, back to the shelter, leaving Roast Von and his goon bewildered, only for them to be caught by police and taken into custody. They will rot in prison for years before they are released. Zion didn't mind that end for some tales dying off. He informed the bots to inform the woman and send her back. Since she was with a child, he decided to look past this transgression. He didn't want an orphan in the streets. The world already had too many. He also put her in department for her treatment and gave her a work at the shelter. With that he easily got a /*a worker. Chapter 79. 79. God a dream. A dark citadel. A church like one that was built before those of our time. One so magnificent. Its roof could fit a giant. Its colored glasses and murals depicting stories told through generations. Pillar tall as behemoths. It was a work of art in itself. Yet, today it was filled with darkness and black fog. On that trapped the light from reaching. I understood not what was happening. Yet as I walked its ground, I saw multitudes worshipping their so-called gods, performing rituals of many kind from many different culture and religions, crying so their gods might listen. I began to panic as I stood among them. I did not where I was, nor what was happening. An overwhelming sense evoked me, To call to my God. I cried. I called in the loudest voice I could muster. I was answered but not by God, but by the cries of multitude as they panicked. Something had broken through. While I looked to what was happening, I saw something descend through the dark fog and snatch someone who was next to me. In fear I called to God again, for protection from this predicament. Yet again I was answered. A chilly voice filled with triumphant, that it sent chills down my spine. God is not listening. I saw a revolting form of an angel. A being mostly human, its whole body pink that connected with its fleshy wings and its talon-like feet. It grinned as if enjoyed the fear in my face. Multiple then descended, picking their prey. And in fear I ran. I ran as one by one, those around me were picked. I ran towards the stairs. The demons then descended before me. He was enjoying this. He looked eyes with me as he slammed into the stair, breaking the ground. I fell through the ground, multiple debris fell on me, sealing me in. But I could see the darkened sky through the gap. The world was done. Why are you still here? Zion asked immediately when he found Amaterasu waiting for him at the shelter. Well, my guide went away on his own. Amaterasu spoke in a teasing tone. Zion huffed in annoyance as he looked to the sky wishing for God to take him. His faith blindly radiating as his annoyance was getting the better of him. Amaterasu, watching the gesture, followed where the faith was connecting, where it was reaching. So that's who you worship, Amaterasu spoke. Yeah. Zion lowered his head. But he doesn't interfere much in your affairs, Amaterasu pointed out. Well, Zion shrugged. He is better than you all, and he did his work when he made this universe. We can't blame him for all the evil we commit. Well, I won't complain since we haven't managed humans in centuries, Amaterasu replied with a similar shrug. But I do hope you show me around. Okay, let's continue then. Zion gestured towards the door. He then turned to the small round ball that was floating next to him. You can do the rest, right? Yes, sir. Okay, we can leave now, Zion stated as he turned to leave. Amaterasu, moving quickly, took his hand, holding his left as she pulled him through the door. Zion looked at her for a moment, his eyes trying to look into hers. So why don't you tell me about how you got to know your God? Amaterasu asked. I grew up in a church orphanage, Zion answered. As a human? Amaterasu questioned. Yes. I lived there for all I can remember, just living my life as the black sheep among white unicorns, drifting as wind blew in the ocean of the unknown. The pastor of the orphanage preached the word of God every day, yet I cared not to listen. People think that we believe because that's all we know. What they don't know is how much anger and pain we have when everything is for God. Is God the reason why you are so miserable? Why you were abandoned by your parents? Left at the foot of the church on a cold night? Yeah, they don't. I lived at the church not exactly filled with faith. Sleeping through the preaching. Never even listening as I let my mind wander the universe. But my friend Mark was a very firm believer. He wouldn't even let me sleep in peace. Zion smiled, reminiscing the memories. He was annoying. But as time drifted past, I caved. I wanted answers. I searched and found them. God, or Jesus as dubbed, is the only one who could love us so much as to sacrifice himself for humans. For his creations. Normally, I would just flip him off, but he was the best among the bunch. You, on the other hand, know all about the gods. Not exactly a loving bunch, are you? Not exactly, Amaterasu agreed but smiled as she thought of something. So how did you figure out the Trinity? It was fun watching the mortals run around trying to comprehend something so simple. Zion nodded. Yeah, I know. It's simple but not easy. It takes time and understanding. I mean, I wouldn't blame anyone for saying we worship three gods. It's understandable. So how did you even comprehend? Easy. It's similar to my situation. Author me and his words. The author, the creator of the universe. Me, his avatar to do his will. And his words that guide us all. In a sense, we are a trinity. I do have the will to do what I want to do, but the author has more authority. Then comes the words that guide us all. So, in a sense I do nothing but by the will of the author. You get it. You are confusing, Amaterasu pointed out as she shook her head. Zion sighed in defeat. I was never the best at explaining things without confusing the other person. But in a sense, we are all made of the author, yet we are separate beings. You are as confusing as a sunfish. I heard people eat that. Does it taste good? But what about the atheist? They would deny everything at each step. Amaterasu was digging into Zion's mind. Of course, but I have very highly advanced technology that some would call magic. But again, the argument is always that humans created gods. I, in a sense, could say they are right, but the question is why? Why would intelligent humans who came from monkeys be so adamant about having something to worship? But if you think that humans are so adamant about God, it's because we try to find something we lost. As creations, we are searching for our Father in times of need, to shelter us from the storm. It is an instinctual reaction. The whole point is that we are trying to fill up an empty void with other things. Humans have always been spiritual. Added to their curiosity, they make a bad combo, Amaterasu joined. Humans are also stupid in a sense, and science is a path of never-ending discoveries. There is no end to it, and science is only correct until someone proves it wrong. And with the Earth's scientific capabilities, they couldn't even understand the full power of quantum physics. And I would say, we are pretty special when we are chosen to be more than a cosmic accident. A clump of lust that somehow stuck together. I'm pretty sure I am not just matter, and neither are the people I care about, nor are those that I interact with. We have a soul, and it is our duty to save it. You spoke as you know and don't know. You are stupid, Amaterasu teased. Zion smiled. I am just human, and now I have someone to whine and talk stupid things about. Someone who would listen, someone who will love me for who I am. Someone who would extend his hand no matter how many times I fall. I am not mentally sane, nor are most humans. But we are real, Amaterasu pointed out. We have lived among humans since their dawn. Yeah, but I am not speaking to you, Zion commented. Then, Zion looked at me, readers. I am talking to you. There is no need to believe, but when times are hard, give him a chance. He will show you wonders. Amaterasu tilted her head like she didn't understand. You wanna get Gotham fried chicken? Zion asked as they arrived near one. It's oily, Amaterasu commented. Well, I will just get one for me then, Zion commented as he walked into the joint and placed his order. Zion walked out with a chicken bucket and a fried crispy chicken in his hand. You want one? Really? After all that talk about being spiritual, Amaterasu declined. Well, people don't like listening to scripture. It annoys their heart, Zion stated the truth. It's not easy to change the heart of men. Amaterasu just shook her head. Do you want one? Zion asked the random passerby. The man freaked out by the sudden question and kept walking. Zion shrugged and took another piece. So, then when did you realize that you were one of us? Amaterasu questioned. It happened recently, when I awakened my knowledge, Zion guessed. So, you received back your memories and regained your power. But you don't belong to any pantheon? Nah, Zion stopped a woman. You want one? The woman looked at Zion as if he was insane before hurrying away. So you got no pantheon, nor do you have a narrative. Are you from the other side? Amaterasu questioned. Nope. There are about hundreds of millions of pantheons in the god sphere. Are you not from any of them? Amaterasu asked. Nope, always been on Earth, Zion answered. So you do belong to the Earth's pantheon, Amaterasu said thoughtfully. Maybe you belong to a yet-forming myth. Probably. Zion reached out to the guy who was minding his business. Want one? The man looked at Zion before taking the chicken out of his hand. Thanks, man. Good to be of service, brother. Zion handed him the whole bucket. He didn't wait and continued walking. What are you even doing? Amaterasu asked. You extend a hand to people, but only some take it, Zion preached. Amaterasu sighed. Can you be serious? I am trying to find your pantheon. Why would you? Zion asked. It's a waste of time anyway. Zion then took Amaterasu around Gotham, showing her many things. Chapter 80. 80, JL Assemble. It's time. Let us begin, Zion smiled. His eyes gleamed with a sense of anticipation as it traced the black canvas filled with uncountable fireflies. The infinite tapestry of beautiful chaos. The blue marble-like planet taking the corner of the picture. Such beautiful universe, one where he was blessed to be born in. But his beauty without a bit of chose. Zion turned around, his eye meeting the dome-like structure. Its metallic smooth shine extending over the whole structure. This was the new base he built. The base was the size of a city, but that was only on the outside. The inside could shelter the whole population of Earth and then some, in an emergency situation. It was also equipped with technology that could be considered magic. Yet, they housed not his greatest creations. Never would he let that fall in wrong hands. He wouldn't trust Justice League with his tech. But the tech was still advanced enough to combat powerful enemies. Zion began his walk, his steps leaving deep prints in the soft surface. The crunch of the ground could not be heard through the vacuum of the space, but he could feel it. The dust floating in the near-zero gravity. What a wonderful day, Zion grinned. His work coming into fruition was a day to be celebrated. Beep beep asterisk beep asterisk beep asterisk. The letter Zion had sent pulsed with a subsonic sound while emitting a dim light. The heroes who held the letter quickly understood that the time has arrived. The glowing letter brought forth many emotions. Worry, excitement, suspicion, curiosity and hope. Many emotions swirled together as the time neared. Today they would connect with those that were similar to them. Ones that would understand their burden. One who could share it. If gone well, they will have a team to fight threats they couldn't fight alone. Superman, dressed in his attire, floated above Metropolis, his hands holding the glowing letter. He had flew up here the moment he heard the sound. The time was here and Zion would be here to pick him up. Or something. He never stated how they would be transported. Kara floated next to her cousin, his nervousness affecting her. His eyes scanning the sky every moment, waiting for something. She could see that her cousin was a bit happy. She couldn't understand why he would be. It was not like she was not present. Don't worry, he will probably teleport you, Kara spoke. That does Mac dash. Before Superman could finish, the space around his fracture and swallowed him. The glitching effect take over as it fixed the broken space. Kara floated still as she watched Clark being swallowed by the glitch. She knew that only Zion could sew something like that. Zion's teleportation was not displacement of matter in space. He tears a hole through the level 1 space and dragged the object through subspace. This is a counter to retracing. When people try to follow the teleportation residue, they would be lost in subspace. Kara took a deep breath and decided to focus on the city below. She got to keep the city safe until Superman returns. Help, help. An old voice called. Sir, your invitation is glowing. I can see that, Alfred, Batman replied as he stared hard at the glowing letter. Do you want me to pack you some sandwich for your tea party? This is a boys' night out, Pennyworth. You should pack him some wine, a seductive voice whispered into Batman's ears as hands warped around his neck. Selina leaned in her lips on Bruce's cheeks. I don't know if I should let her kiss or lick him like a cat. Be at ease, darling. I don't want you to bite your new friends.
That's only for me.
It's a cooperation. Even thought Selina's works were seductive. Batman was on work mode. You are no fun. Selina unwrapped herself from Batman and returned to wherever she came from.
Batman reached for the glowing letter. See you later, Selina.
Selina turned to the words, but Batman had already vanished. It's already here, Flash is freaking out, million thoughts firing in his head. He was buzzing on as he kept moving around his room. He was already ready in his suit. He even polished the whole suit and made user that he didn't smell. How should I greet them? Should I just be casual? Maybe a, hi, or, hello. Or should I be formal? Should I introduce myself as just Flash? Do I give them a firm handshake? What if it was someone from other country? Should I make a joke to smooth the atmosphere? Will they think I am weird? Would I come as weird? Should I bring present? Or is it over the top? How about food? Maybe pantries? Pizza. Flash's speed didn't help him in this situation. He was getting too excited. He wanted to make a good impression on his future teammates. But he wasn't given time to finish his thoughts as space cracked open, a force pulling him though. He let the crack swallow him as he felt the letter being attracted. You excited? Steve asked. Yes, Diana replied. Not only am I getting to meet some other warrior who fight for justice but to also help Zion who helped out gods. It will be an opportunity to pay back the department. That too, Steve agreed. But be careful. Why? Diana questioned. No one's going to hurt me, and if they want to they can try. Steve could only agree, and he trusted that Zion would not use backhanded method to capture Diana. It's time. Diana clutched the later and the space around her broke. At the edge of Sector 2114. Surrender peacefully. Green Lantern spoke as he flashed the ring at a ship. The ship crafted from multiple ship parts was barely holding on. The ship was also damaged from the private cruise defense system. They had escaped after they failed to rob a Crusoe ship. These were the space pirates. But instead of surrendering, they pirates charged their cannon. Hal scoffed in annoyance as he formed a hand and stuck it into the cannon. The pirates fired the cannon only for the left wing to go up in flames. Hal quickly patched up the hole and arrested the criminals. Lanter, report to Nyan. Is it time already? Hal mused. Let's see who the other hot rods are. Hal informed a nearby lantern and handed the criminals over. The ring flashed for a moment and Lantern vanished. Zion stood to the side as he watched the other being dropped into the hall. Superman, Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, and finally Green Lantern. They quickly looked around, ready to fight if threat detected. They all quickly noticed that there were others with them in a massive circular room, enough to fit school auditorium. They were wary of the other two as Superman, Wonder Woman, Martian and Green Lantern were acquainted. They exchanged a small nod and turned to the other three. Zion, were you invited to? Flash asked excitedly, appearing next to Zion. Zion tilted his head. Dude, I was the one who invited you. Of course I will be here. You are Nyan. Flash looked surprised before a look of realization then confusion. But the letter was written in a way like I don't know you? It was supposed to be a prank, Zion admitted. And how did you not know it was me? Flash looked a bit embarrassed. Well, the both of you have totally different vibe. Moreover, aren't you not a human but an alien velociraptor? And Nyan used fire and highly advanced tech. How could you miss? I even called you to help with the terrorist, Zion questioned. I was even there. I thought you wanted me to help with the terrorist because you couldn't go? And you could have solved it anyway, you are fast. Flash explained. That is a serious leap of logic, Zion pointed. But understandable, I did have a personality shift when I transform. You can transform into other aliens? Flash asked curious. I can, Zion answered. Can yo, Zion? Batman cut into their conversation, his eyes glaring at Zion. The duo turned to the man in dark, and looked to the others. Zion realized why they hear and coughed to clear the awkwardness. Forgive me, Zion apologized. Let us begin the council. At his worlds, the floor shifted as a circular table rose from the ground. Even comfy chairs, equally distant, appeared. Since the group was small, the table was also small. Take a seat. Zion took the one near him. Flash took the seat next to him, Batman the other. The other took seats near them. They all took the seat, but were still a bit tense. Zion began, let me start, I am Zion and is known by the name Nyan. Zion then turned to Batman. Batman grunted but nevertheless complied. I am Batman. That's it. Hal questioned. I do not trust enough to reveal my identity, Batman answered. Look at this guy, Hal was pricked. Zion spoke at this moment. There is no need to reveal your identity. I only reveal mine since most of you here know me. Zion pacified. You all with be working together. When all of you gain enough trust in each other, then it is your to reveal or not. I don't like the idea of a team, it's inefficient, Batman commented. Hal was about to reply, but Zion cut to him. We need to, Batman. This is bigger than all of you. Batman just grunted. Flash shifted uncomfortably at the sudden, but Zion gave him a nod. I am the Flash, Flash spoke after a deep breath. I am fast and work at Central City. Thank you, Flash, Zion spoke as he stared at Batman. Superman followed. I am Superman. I primarily work at Metropolis. We know Superman, Flash interjected. The savior of Metropolis. The man of steel. Symbol of hope. Thank you, Superman appreciated.
Then I shall introduce myself. Diana spoke up. I am Diana Prince, or Wonder Woman. I come from Themyscira. I don't exactly protect a city as I work with government to combat threats. I also don't have specific power, but I do possess the strength and speed of an Amazon warrior. Ha, Hal scoffed. Those idiots were only using you. I am J.on Johns, or Martian Manhunter. I am from Mars. I can shape-shift. Martian Manhunter introduced himself. Finally, it was Hal's turn. Hal looked at the other before he sighed to himself and began. I am Green Lantern, one of many out there. Protector of 2814, where Earth belong. Yeah, I am a space cop. I can use my power to create any construct I imagine. Yeah, Zion shrugged it off. Well, since you all learn about each other, we can move to the main mat. The others nodded. Zion moved his hand and holodisk appeared. He quickly navigated through the data. You all already know why I have assembled you, Zion began. As you all know, the first cosmic threat was met by me. Yes, you don't need to thank me. But that will not be the last of it. Darkseid was defeated but not killed. The projections of Darkseid appeared in the center. Everyone could see his face as the projection rotated. I wasn't able to kill him due to his associate and he escaped. Darkseid was wounded and he would return for vengeance. He is a sore loser, so until we either kill him for good or imprison him for eternity, he will always be a threat. His is annoying. But he is not the only threat we will face. The universe is vast and the sapient species uncountable. And in them there are those who just want to conquer. From alien star to rouge killing machines. Everything will now come for Earth and I am only one man. Zion words made the hall fall silent. The seriousness of the situation was a bit more than they expected. Why are they coming to Earth? Hal asked. We are like in a forgotten corner of the universe. Zion sighed. I wish it was that simple. Earth is a crux world. It is crux world of superheroes. Similar to Krypton. This made Superman flinch. It will attract all kind of troubles due to the secret it hides. But Earth had created heroes to protect itself. You ever wondered why so many unthinkable things happen sometimes? Why some of you gained power? Why you were attracted to a backwater planet? It's because you all were chosen to be its protectors. Superman is basically the champion of Earth. Everyone turned to Superman, but Superman didn't buckle under the gaze. What are the threats we will be facing? Can't we solve it before it arrives? He questioned. Well, that's the problem. I don't know. Zion spread his hands. I just know of the threats that will be coming, but got no idea what it will be. Things are already changing due to my intervention. What do you mean? Batman asked. As I said, I don't know what threat we will be facing, Zion repeated. I am asking you about your intervention and its effects, Batman pointed. Zion just stared at Batman, but he decided to answer. I don't belong to your universe.